Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 152, right? 152?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. 152. I actually didn't look. Let me look and make sure. This is pretty rare. But let me see, boys.
I think that's
100, right. And it is. It's right. It's 152. You know how I figure these things out when I need to figure it out on the fly is I go to Patreon and just scroll to the very top, and it has these little boxes, and then it just says how many episodes have been uploaded with that tag. And then all you do is add one. That's it, boys. That's all you have to do.
Oh, I mean,
it's a little bit of mathematics for you.
That's a fact. You could also just remember.
Yeah,
but,
that's true. That's true.
You know,
good. Chris Raygun, how are you today?
I'm good. You know, I took a cold shower today, not because I wanted to, but because our hot water is not working, and I was delighted because I got out. We were really close to recording the show, and I was like, whatever. I got time. I could take a quick shower, and then I got in there. I was like, okay, so this is gonna be a bad one. But I'm super awake now, which is great.
I was going to say, you've never been more awake in your life, probably.
Oh, yeah, no, I feel super lively. My skeleton is just brimming with energy.
No,
just my skeleton, though, not the meat surrounding it.
Right. Yeah, okay. A little internal, outward thing. I get it. I mean, my brother, Dagan, who I do knockback with, we all know Dagan, he doesn't like warm showers. Like, he takes, like, almost, like, cool or lukewarm showers, and he hates them. Like
wow.
And I'm always so surprised by that because I feel like there's nothing better than a hot shower, or even better, a hot bath. I love baths. I just love them. Just put a little oil in there, some bubbles, if you were, pretty good shit. Dustin.
Hello.
Dustin Furman, executive producer of Last Stand Media, full-time member now of our show, Sacred Symbols. How did you feel seeing me shirtless when I showed up today to the recording?
Well, I'm just glad that, the video doesn't show the waist down, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. I did have pants on. I did have pants on.
No, I'm saying for me. You don't know what I was doing.
Oh. Well, I don't want you to poke your eye out or anything like that, so be careful.
Definitely not. No.
Yeah. You're not in any danger of that, are you?
Oh,
is that your business? Yeah.
Who's to say?
Well, yeah. Well, it's good to see you, boys. It's good to see everyone out there as well. Thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support of our show, Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. We put it up each and every week, and you can get it 3 days early and ad-free on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. Now, I can't believe that I'm saying this, but we are now past 12,000 patrons on Last Stand Media.
Insane.
I don't know what else to say. I wrote a letter a couple of weeks ago to the audience just to let them know. Again, we passed a couple of stretch goals, so we're going to start rolling those out in July. That will be with a second episode of Sacred Symbols Plus every week. Sacred Symbols Plus, of course, is our Patreon exclusive episode of the show. So now we'll be doing 2 of those a week, which will be fun. So it'll allow us to kind of marinate the interviews that we've been doing. We can talk to each other in different permutations, continue to do the spoiler cast. Dustin, you just did the Nier Replicant review discussion and spoiler cast. How did that go?
It went well. And for anyone who is either interested in that game, the first 20 minutes are spoiler free. And even if you're not interested, I'd recommend checking it out because someone broke into Maddie's studio mid-recording.
I watched it. Yeah, I watched it.
It was pretty great. It was a fun time.
He was pretty perturbed. It was, and I don't blame him. It's like, what the heck? I don't quite know what his setup is, but I know that that's like a private area. So it's basically like a breaking and entering kind of situation,
right?
To just be busting in there like that. And I loved how he's like, well, I'm recording something. I like how Maddie stood his ground. I thought that was, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good thing he didn't live in like deep Texas or something like that. Could have been some sort of gunfight live on the podcast. We wouldn't want to see that. But I've been hearing really good things about the spoiler cast. So very well done on that. And the review discussion. We'll continue to roll those out. And I don't know what the timing is, but we realized that we actually have had 2 spoiler casts. We always try to make them free for everyone later on. Like when we put the next one up, we'll make the previous one free. But we forgot to do that for the past 2, which is Hitman 3.
Yep.
And what else?
Outriders.
So we're going to make both of those free on YouTube for everyone.
Yes.
So Dustin, you'll see to that, obviously, as you see to all things.
Right.
And laststandmedia.shop merch. We still have our Vita Means Death line going. Awesome, exclusive, custom made art from artists around the world, and we're going to continue to work with them. Henry Maxwell is the artist we worked with most recently on a beautiful Killzone Mercenary shirt. And also, I think my favorite shirt, which is the Super Stardust Delta shirt. I love that design. And I'm actually going to try to get that design maybe printed on a poster or something, because I love that game so much with the Vita Means Death on it. So thank you all so much for supporting us over there as well. And remember, we have a Reddit. So what is it called? A subreddit? I don't really read it, but Indeed. It's a subreddit. Yes. People gather at. And Discord, which I've been posting willy-nilly all over that Discord. You know, a meme here, a political thought there, a gaming thing here, a sacred symbols thing over yonder.
Yeah.
Chris, I've been seeing you in there a little bit.
Yeah, well. I pop in every now and again. Discord is kind of overwhelming to me because I manage like 3. So it's like I have to like really manage my time. But it's pretty chill over there. I like the Last Stand Media Discord.
Thank you. Yeah. And yeah, I'm really happy with what we have going right now with the company. Everyone seems to be happy. Everyone seems to be as happy as they're ever going to get. Yeah. You know, especially me and Chris. I don't know if it's going to get much better than this for us, but but everyone's doing a really great job. I feel like we're firing on all cylinders. So congratulations to you guys. And obviously, I talked to Ben in email and stuff. But Ben, when you're listening to this, congratulations, of course, to you. I sent Ben and Dustin an email, snarky email last week, congratulating them, but then telling them that when we pass, 13,000 Patreon subscribers, I will cut your pay in half. Yeah. And that's going to be the stretch goal for that.
Dang.
So, but we're not really going to do that to you. We just appreciate everyone's kindness and love. And I think a lot of people are getting what we're trying to build here, which is something where people can say their piece. Like when we had our conversation last week, people really liked it. I mean, I got a lot of private correspondence. A lot of people said it publicly too, but tons of private correspondence congratulating people and certainly taking the side of Chris, certainly taking the side of Dustin. A lot of wisdom in what that young man was saying. Oh. So thank you all for allowing us to breathe. I guess I wanted to say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Chris? Like, there are so many communities where I don't think the creators can breathe.
Yeah.
And I can breathe here.
Yeah. I don't think the conversation that happened on this show happens all that often in the way that it does. In the way that it did, I should say.
Yeah. It's not hard. I don't think it's hard.
I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
But
as long as, like, I'm sorry, Dustin, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, it's funny to me because I was seeing a lot of that feedback, and obviously I'm so thankful. I'm glad that we were able to provide a nuanced conversation between 3 adults that can disagree on some things, agree on other things, and just accept that. And it's actually, I mean, all the feedback kind of made me sad in a way that this is that kind of conversation, that kind of content is clearly lacking. And a lot of other podcasts or whatever it is can't communicate in that way. So I'm glad we can provide that.
That it is even worth paying attention to that we were able to do that is depressing. Yep. You know, it should just be pretty standard, but
yeah, I mean, I agree. And I feel good about, like, I'm going to ratchet it up a little bit with some people now. Dustin knows, I'll tell Chris later, but there's one person in particular that's actually interested in being on the show that I think is going to be very controversial. But
yes.
But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's a conversation that needs to happen. I want to have it. And so I think we'll feel it out. And maybe we'll talk with our patrons about it. It's Ted Cruz. And that man was Ted Cruz. All right, let's see here. We have a few letters from the audience to get through, a few corrections and inquiries and all of these things. And let's start with Spencer F., who wrote into us and said, "Hey, CDC, this message is primarily for Colin. With all the discussion of your legacy at different companies over the past couple of weeks, it got me thinking, have you considered how you will eventually end sacred symbols? Last Stand Media is firing on all cylinders right now, but nothing great lasts forever. When you want to retire, will the show continue indefinitely with new hosts, or will you cap it off with a last major hurrah and close shop for good? Congrats on over 12,000. Thank you for all the incredible content, and keep sticking your dick in that finger-licking chicken." That's fucking horrible. Yeah. What you just said. The last part, not everything else, but there's the last part. Thank you for writing in, Spencer. Guys, how do you think we should end the show? I mean, Chris, I had this idea that we're not going to end the show for many years, but I don't think.
Yeah.
But I have this idea that we should just disappear one day. Like that. Like one day we all agree we're just going to go away. A kind of Gone Galt moment from, I love Ayn Rand, obviously, but I don't mean in a political way. But like everyone just goes away. It would be hysterical. Even if you came back, like even if we just played dead for 3 months and just went away and like just went off of Twitter, no uploads, no word from any of us. No one, and then suddenly we just come back and we upload another episode and just keep going from there as if nothing happened, and as if we don't even reference the missing piece of time, as if it's a trick played on the audience. What do you think of that? I like that idea. I just ruined it.
I like stuff like that. Yeah. Any way to mess with the audience in a way that's like nice and kind of fun like that. I love it. But I think, well, the bigger question, because I know we're not going to. I know we're nowhere near ending this show. I feel like we're just kind of gaining like an immense amount of steam. But
of course, yeah.
What happens? Let's say if Colin, he eats too much Five Guys and then he gets a brain aneurysm and then he forgets everything he knows about PlayStation. He's just like, what is Insomniac? What's that? Chris, Dustin, explain that to me. At that point, we're gonna have maybe a conversation.
Yeah.
But I think no need to think about the end yet.
No need to think about that.
Right.
A lot of people get scared about that. I understand. It's almost like, Dustin, when a band you like releases a great record and then you feel like, is it gonna continue? Is this like the moment when it's most special? And I guess I feel that way about the things I love too. I listen to a political podcast called Left, Right, and Center, which I really enjoy. And there's this guy named Josh Barra who hosts it, and he's the center, so-called center. And then they invite different people from the right and the left. But there's a specific permutation I like on the show. And I heard it last week, or at least part of it. A writer I like, Liz Brunig, came back. And I was just like, this is such familiar. It's such comfort food, and I don't know. I dig it. I like that we have... I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't even want to get into this philosophical thing I was about to get into. I'm getting too philosophical today. Derek Beek wrote in. This is a little bit of a correction, by the way. And I apologize about that. Because I don't like being corrected. You got to man up when you get corrected. And you got to, it's hard to do. But we got to correct the record. Hey, buckos. Was listening to the last episode of Sacred Symbols, and you guys were talking about Painkiller and how it's not on PlayStation. There's actually a sequel to Painkiller called Painkiller, Hell and Damnation that's on the PlayStation 3 and is going for like $600 on eBay. One of the rarest games on the console. The European release isn't crazy expensive at like $40, but for some reason they must have not printed as much in the US because that's the version that goes at ridiculous prices. Just thought you should know because it's kind of interesting. So I looked into this a little bit. Someone else wrote about this as well. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I did not know, but apparently the US version of Painkiller is Hell and Damnation is an Amazon exclusive from when they weren't, I guess, too notable of a game selling organ, let's say. So yeah, you're right. And I can't believe that I didn't know that, but I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. Like that was totally news to me. Like I never even heard of Hell and Damnation. Like as far as like, cause I've heard of Painkiller before, but that was like, this is okay. Whoops.
What's weird is that Amazon, that's not the only time that they've done a exclusive physical release, because I have Gravity Rush Remastered, which I got off Amazon PS4. And is now like at least double the value, maybe more now, that I just happened to get for $40 at one point. Now it's like kind of rare.
Yeah, it's I'm always so fascinated, guys, by this this completionist mentality with physical games, because there's a finite amount of a lot of these games. I think a lot about that with Vita, but I actually think about that a lot with PS4 because, like you said, Gravity Rush is actually not even as notable of an example as just the many games like Habroxia or something, like a game I worked on where there's like a couple thousand of them. And if you really want like a full collection of games, there's only maybe going to be a few people that can do that. It's kind of wild. Like as opposed to you can do a complete NES collection. A lot of people have done that, even if you don't include the Tengen games and other things and like the Color Dreams games. Like there's a calculable amount of games.
Yeah.
And you can get them for, the right price. It seems so much more difficult with the disc-based games. Like N64, very easy to collect for. I mean, it's much more expensive now, but that's like a really finite amount of games. So I don't know how people even delve in, or if you like compartmentalize what you want and like how you're going to approach it, because you can't possibly get them all. Dustin, you have something to say?
I was gonna say do you know the rarest PS4 game, Colin?
The rarest PS4 game.
You'd never expect it.
I don't know. What is it?
I'm pretty sure this is still accurate. It's a game called Poop Slinger.
Oh, I would have never guessed that. Is that a VR game?
No, it's a really terrible game, but apparently it was a company. I'm trying to remember. They basically ripped off their limited run logo, and it was called Limited Rare. And somehow they were able to get some of these copies out. They had managed to shift 84 units and then have to shut down business. So there's only like 80 of them out there before they had to shut down because they were like going to get sued.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's called Poop Slinger. It's out there.
And I wonder, yeah.
If there's no copies even on eBay, that's how you know it's insanely rare. No copies available for sale.
I was gonna say, I wonder if like the collectors count that. Like, is that counted? I would imagine you would have to probably count it. How could you not?
Yeah.
But that's quite the world, man. People are living in with this physical collecting thing. I realize it a little bit with the G.I. Joes because I mean, they're behind me and they never move because I never touch anything on that shelf. But I collect them, I buy them anyway, and then I put them there, and that's where they sit.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
Hey, Chris, a lot of people wrote in about this for you.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Brown wrote in as a representative of these people. Thank you all for writing in, though. He says, hey, CDC, last episode you asked for perspective from a GTA Online player who plays daily. That was you that asked that, right, Chris?
Yeah, I was just painfully curious. Yeah,
well, you're going to get an answer. I played Red Dead Online and or GTA Online almost daily for almost all of 2020. For me, the game was sometimes about unlocking new costumes or items, but the main driver was more as a virtual hangout space to be with friends and meet new ones. I became close friends with several people from states across the US, and I think it was a great place to virtually hang out, especially in a year where in-person events were so limited. I do think this grows stale eventually, however, I haven't played them much in 2021. Just wanted to share one possible perspective of daily Rockstar players. This was kind of a common refrain, which was that people found it a somewhat social experience, which is cool.
Yeah, I think I understand that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Like that game is pretty robust. It's huge. Like there's a really in-depth physics engine. I could see why that game, in comparison to most games, would substitute pretty greatly for a social experience. It makes a lot more sense than just because like I remember playing GTA Online and people were like, "Let's go into team deathmatch," and I'm like, "Really? Is there a team?" Like, I didn't even know, like, because I feel like all I did in GTA 4 Online was just free roam with my friends and just fuck around and, like, hit each other with cars. You know, that's all we did. So I remember just, like, thinking, like, there's, like, capture the flag. There's, like, game modes and stuff. I don't understand. This is weird. Like, why would I want this? This is not this kind of game to me.
Yeah.
But if it's a social experience, that makes way more sense to me.
It's interesting, too, because I feel like there was always a social element to playing those, like you said, like just playing Grand Theft Auto, not even online, but I remember just playing even GTA 3, just unlocking the rocket launcher and then just going into a corner and sitting there with my brother and just like, and we would just talk and whatever, laugh occasionally, and it's always kind of been that kind of element. It's a talkable game, you know, let's call it like a game. It's a game that encourages conversation. You can talk over it, you can talk through it. Yeah, I get it. Thank you all for writing in about that. We appreciate it. This next one is bothering me a little bit that people are writing in about this, but they are writing in about this, so let's talk about it. Nitro Gas wrote in, said, hello, Hard Colin and Chris Johnson. Wow, you're just being completely ignored, Dustin, in this one.
Thanks.
That's messed up, Nitro.
On the latest episode of Sacred Symbols, Chris said that Tom Cruise would potentially be the biggest star in a video game ever. All right, so first of all, I said that.
Yeah.
Chris didn't say that.
Strike one.
But he says if he's casting the upcoming Starfield, I wanted to advise that Chris, Colin, is absolutely incorrect. The biggest star in a video game has already been cast in the upcoming title, Giancarlo Esposito in Far Cry 6. The second biggest would be Kiefer Sutherland as Snake in The Phantom Pain. This would make TC the third most famous actor to be featured in a video game.
No.
Yeah.
No. I don't know what you have to say about this, but I suspect we agree. Listen, Kiefer Sutherland and Giancarlo Esposito, great. I love both of those guys, like specifically like for their body of work. But there's no way in hell that either of them, even honestly, probably combined, are as famous as Tom Cruise. That's just not accurate. It just
we're
can't
talking
be.
about it. we're talking about a Leonardo DiCaprio level, Tom Hanks level actor. These people are not even, because people have been writing about also I don't know if you remember, Bruce Willis was in that 1998 Neversoft game on PS1 called Apocalypse. But I'm like, I like Bruce Willis, and I'm like, all right, that's a good point, but Bruce Willis is still like a pantheon or two below what I'm talking about. Tom Cruise, if Tom Cruise is the main character of Starfield, that is categorically the biggest starring role of the most major actor in a video game ever.
Yeah.
I don't think you can I think that would be so huge. I just don't understand how anyone can possibly, like, imagine how much Tom Cruise costs. Like, no offense to like Troy Baker or these other guys who do very well, but imagine how much more Tom Cruise costs than Troy Baker.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty, because, you know, I would say, I mean, I know Guillermo del Toro isn't an actor, obviously. He's been in things, but he's like super famous as well, and he was in Death Stranding. But even I don't know, like Tom Cruise is just ubiquitously known in a way that Kiefer Sutherland and Giancarlo Esposito are not. I think a lot of people have seen Giancarlo Esposito in things. I think a lot of people have seen Kiefer Sutherland on TV, maybe, but like, I guarantee you more people know who Tom Cruise is, even if they haven't seen a Tom Cruise movie. You know, like, it's just a recognizable name, like, to everybody who's ever been alive, potentially. Yeah. Like, I really, I don't know. This was a weird take, I think.
Dustin, do you also take umbrage?
Yeah, there's 3 strikes on this write-in. First, no acknowledgement of the D.
Right.
Second, attributed the wrong statement to the wrong person.
Right.
3.
Very, very sloppy.
3. Clearly, I mean, I guess the third part is it's not even an opinion. Like, it's just Tom Cruise is just simply much bigger than these.
I don't know.
Other,
I don't know. Yeah, it's like, I don't know if you're being facetious. Maybe you're being facetious. I'm looking forward. Now, Far Cry 6, by the way, is on the verge of being shown the gameplay. So we'll check that out and talk about that next week, by the way. So just so you know. And of course, we're going to get into it in a little while about Horizon, which we'll talk about momentarily.
Yeah. And by the way, I wanted to just point this out. There's also no bias here, because I don't even really like Tom Cruise as much as I like Giancarlo Esposito or Kiefer Sutherland.
No, I don't either.
It's literally just a categorical fact.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's that this is an objective observation about fame and notoriety. All right. Let's see what else here. Oh, Nigel wrote in about this. Said, Colin, are you human? I've watched you fastidiously over countless minutes and content, and you never yawn. Is there some sort of elixir you quaff before each show? Are you well rested due to a life of sensual delights men dare not dream of? If neither are true, then my suspicions must be, Colin, you are a Cylon. Speaking of Cylon, we're going to be doing Battlestar Galactica on Knockback soon in 4 episodes. It's going to be very exciting. Or at least I'm excited about that. Maybe people are like, oh my God, it sounds horrible. But I don't think it sounds horrible. I think it sounds fun. Now, I yawn on shows, but I hide it. It's easy to hide. I mean, you just yawn, but Chris, you're a yawner that doesn't hide it. I mean, I know.
No.
Now, why don't you hide it? I mean, aren't you afraid you're being rude, or does the yawn feel better? Because I must say, the yawn certainly doesn't feel good when you are holding it inside of you.
Oh, it's terrible. It's like I yawn a lot, and it's not even necessarily because I don't know what it is. I think I might just be highly suggestive to that shit, because I was reading the document and I read this question, and then I immediately felt a yawn, and I was like, God damn it. Sometimes I will say, sometimes I do hide it. Sometimes I'll do the cheeky like this. I'll do this.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll strain it and I'll keep it in.
Yeah. I do like I'm sure you probably just don't notice because I'm trying to be like real casual about it, but I'm tired sometimes too. I mean, I'm always tired. I look tired all the time. I'm exhausted. Jesus.
I gotta be honest. I'm a little annoyed at this weird, like, the social implication of yawning, implicitly meaning that a person is like being disrespectful, bro. Yeah. Like, I'm a goddamn human being, you know. Let me goddamn yawn. It's fine. Like, it's not. I've never once been like personally offended by a person yawning in my vicinity when I'm talking to them. You know, not once. Maybe this is like an old thing that
I guess the implication is that like, oh, you're bored or tired of me, but it's like one doesn't necessarily have to do with the other. I could be very engaged in what you're saying, but tired, or so I totally understand what you mean. Yeah, I totally get that.
To me, it's like if like I don't know, if you're talking to somebody and they burp and you're like, what am I making you gaseous? What am I making you sick? It's like, nah, yeah. I'm like
making you toot. Dustin.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah. Okay, I mean, Google never fails 100% accurate, but according to this, it says yawning is commonly thought to be a sign of sleepiness or boredom. This is not always the case. When someone who yawns may be tired, their heart rate quickly rises during a yawn. This increased heart rate suggests the yawning can be a sign of alertness. So anyone who thinks it's like, oh, they're yawning, they're tired, check Google. You know, that seems to not be the case. Because I've yawned a bunch of times and never thought, like, I'm tired. It just happens sometimes.
Yeah. And it's also like a weird thing where like even just reading the word yawn can like make you yawn. Or like yawns are contagious.
Yeah, the contagion aspect is very interesting. I don't know what that's all about.
Very weird. The audience right now. There's probably at least 100 people that have yawned during this segment of the show.
I mean, I guarantee you they've been yawning during this segment.
Yes.
And during this entire show. There's no doubt. I mean, I guarantee that's true. All right, a couple other things here. There was a kind of a false start. People got a little too excited. It looked like God of War Ragnarok had an official logo released by Sony, which would also be a confirmation of the game's name, because we actually don't know that would be what the game is called. But there was a kind of, I don't know, an investor slideshow that they had posted on Sony.com. And there was a logo for upcoming games for PS5, and it said God of War Ragnarok with a logo, but it seems very similar to a thing that happened, you guys might recall, with Gran Turismo some months ago, where they just went online and literally like the PR or marketing people just took a fan-made logo of God of War Ragnarok, and that does seem to be what that is. So I assume that's what the game is called, but we don't know yet. The more interesting thing about it, guys, is that it was under a category saying like, you know, strong next-gen exclusives of some sort. It seems to indicate that it won't be on PS4, which is all of our hope. Please don't put it on PS4. All right, what else here? Oh, Hatful Boyfriend, the pigeon dating simulator that came to PC a long time ago, but PS4 and Vita in 2015. Ironically, that was published by Mediatonic. Those are the guys that made, more recently, Fall Guys. This was put out by them when they were a much smaller company. The licensing rights for the PS4 and Vita version is done. So this game is no longer available on PS4 and Vita. If you already own it, which I do, you have it to download in perpetuity. But it is one of the rare games that has been taken down. And we'll let you guys know if it gets put back up. Guys, I wanted to ask you about this Bloomberg article that came out of Japan. It happened just yesterday from when we were recording this, actually, last night. Nintendo plans upgraded Switch replacement as soon as September, according to the article. Dustin, do you feel like this is anything noteworthy for our show as far as a competitor to PlayStation, something that is reinvigorating demand for this console? It's obviously selling extraordinarily well still. It sounds like what's going to happen is the Switch as we know it is going to go away. The Switch Lite will remain, and then this new Switch will replace the docked Switch. So the Switch like I have will be like the antiquated one, I guess, like the PS4 base version, which is fine. And what's most interesting in that article is saying that they are going to start manufacturing these things in June and July, and that they are barreling through this microchip shortage, which means that they have some sort of great connection to supply their machines. So, Dustin, what do you think? Do you think this is a notable thing for us to discuss further?
I think it's somewhat notable just in the fact that, I don't know, I feel like there are a lot of people like me that a lot of times indie games, for the most part, I buy on Switch now for that flexibility. And so, I don't know, it's cool that the Switch is, I mean, a souped up version. Clearly the Switch is feeling pretty tired, especially if you saw that newest Pokemon trailer looking pretty rough. in certain aspects. But I think just to tie in what's also, Colin, you've always talked about no one is competing with Nintendo. Why won't Sony give it a shot? Well,
yeah.
I mean, there was rumors this week about Valve having a handheld potentially this year.
Yeah.
And so it's just even more, it's like Valve even sees that there's potential in that market. And so on the other hand, I get Sony's like, we've got PS5, PS4, and we're really focused on VR. Like, I can understand not wanting to spread themselves too thin, but clearly there is still very much a market for handhelds that is out there and ready to be claimed.
Yeah, it's disappointing just because I don't know. I want them to try to stake a claim there again, just for my own greed, because I love handheld games so much. But Chris, are you interested in this new, more powerful Switch?
Yeah, I mean, I'm typically always interested in new hardware. I just like the feeling of just like opening a new box and like seeing like a new machine. I'm really like simple in that way. Like something feels good about opening like a new machine. But I do think the Switch is kind of in, it's in dire need for some juice. Not even necessarily because the games that I play on there are particularly all that intensive. I pretty much use it as just like a Smash Brothers machine. I play like there are some Oddworld games that I turn, like, not graphically intensive things, but at the same time, I do think Nintendo needs to, make that machine a little bit more viable, especially as, this next generation or this brand new current generation starts to become the norm, and the Switch is not going to get PS5 native or Xbox Series X native games to the same quality anyway. We just got kind of recently in the last like few years, we got a port of The Witcher 3, and that's like a pretty old game, and that wasn't running well. So I think it's imperative that they at least get a little bit more power out of that thing.
Yeah, I would agree too. And so the Bloomberg article notes 4K output when docked. We had heard that before. And then an OLED screen, 7-inch OLED screen, which is very Vita-like, although much bigger. And so it'll be interesting to see how this all goes. I think the most fascinating point, though, is price. It sounds like this thing is going to be expensive, maybe $400.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that looks in comparison to a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, particularly an Xbox Series S, right? That's the cheaper one, right? So they're going to be competing actually pretty directly at a price point that will be interesting to, I guess, monitor. But yeah, I felt like it would be weird not to mention that rumor, even though we're not a Nintendo show. So closing out on that, let's see what else is next here. This week's episode of Sacred Symbols is brought to you by BetterHelp, and listeners can get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/symbols. Taking care of your mind is important. A happy brain is vital to your mood, productivity, and general disposition, and just like with your body, you have to take care of it to extract its optimal potential. And part of taking care of your mind could be therapy, which is where BetterHelp comes into play. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't even have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. By going to betterhelp.com/symbols, that's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS, you can begin your journey of customized and highly tailored therapy, honing in on the specific angles you want to cover, and you can begin communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Whether you're dealing with anxiety and depression, trying to control your temper or manage your stress, dealing with performance issues in relationships or at work, or just about anything else you can think of, you can begin talking to someone in mere days that can help you tackle what lies in front of you. As a vocal advocate of mental health, I truly think it's essential to listen to what your mind is telling you. Sometimes what it needs most is someone to talk to, someone to listen, someone to offer counsel and advice. This is what BetterHelp is all about. To get 10% off your first month of therapy sessions, go to betterhelp.com/symbols. Again, give therapy a try in whatever way is most comfortable for you at betterhelp.com/symbols. That's betterhelp.com/symbols. Oh, I wanted to just flag this story. It's actually a really good story. We got to give props where props are due. Over on VG 24/7, there's a story called Inside the Driver Game That Died So That Watch Dogs Could Live. people should go read about it if you're interested in gaming history, because what it basically says is that Watch Dogs began as a driver game, which was not known until now, and that's pretty substantial. At some point, the projects kind of deviated, and I believe what was the original iteration of Watch Dogs turned into 2011's Driver San Francisco, which is a fairly well-regarded game. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out if you're interested in any of that. And the Driver is an interesting game to try to revive, I think, at some point. I don't know if there's room for it anymore. I feel like there is. It has that almost like Hot Pursuit thing going, and apparently like a lot of the cop stuff and a lot of the technology was in the original version of the game, and that's kind of where Watch Dogs came from. So anyway, people should go check that out if they want to, if you're interested in further reading. And guys, I don't know if you saw, but Unreal Engine 5 is being shown off more, and so it will ship in 2022. Developers are allowed to play around with it now. I don't know if you saw the any of what was being written about this, but Dustin, are you intrigued by what developers can do with this particular technology? Because it sounds incredibly powerful and could be a sign of why Sony was so keen on getting involved with Epic financially.
Yeah, I was watching Digital Foundry, which I think I mentioned them like once an episode now, but
yeah,
I was watching, they had a pretty good breakdown of like some of the new tools, and like they're able to do some ray traced lighting effects without ray tracing that is really neat. And the way that they're able to, I think they said something like, basically as you get closer to objects, they'll have more polygons. So as you get closer, you'll be able to see more detail, but when you're further away and it doesn't need that level of detail, it can cut back in order to, which, I mean, we already have something like that, but it's a way more advanced version of it. Yeah. So I think it'll be cool. That's where I think something like this is where we're really going to start to see next gen, even though I'm pretty sure Unreal 5 will work on previous gen. So either way, new tool sets are always interesting to see the new tech. Yeah,
definitely. Chris, do you feel like there's some sort of strategy with this around Sony? I feel like Sony is definitely trying to get involved with this particular engine at a more base level. I think seeing the potential of it. You'll remember when we first saw Unreal Engine 5, they were very obvious about talking about it was running on PS5, not on next gen, not on PC spec 2X.
Yeah.
So do you think there's some sort of substance here for Sony?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm looking at I saw this video earlier, but I'm just like skimming through it again. This is a really powerful tool set. Like I have messed around with Unreal Engine in the past. I've messed around in Unity. I've dabbled in engines, and this tech is really, really cool to just have right there. Like I feel like doing this on an older engine, anything even similar to this would have been time consuming and really, really painful. So like the fact that this seems like this doesn't even look hard for someone like me to take advantage of, you know what I mean? Which is ridiculous for like people who are like genuinely like knowledgeable and like actually know how to build shit properly. It makes a ton of sense why they would want to get involved with this in some capacity, because it's impressive tech.
Chris, I think you make a great point, because we always think about engine improvements, what it means for us as the players and what we see on the screen, but there's a huge thing to be said about the tools for developers to get things done quickly, as you said, and easily. And that's one of the things I think when they revealed this, what was it, a year ago now, when they first showed it off, they really were emphasizing the amount of how much less time developers would need to do some of this more advanced stuff. So that's a big deal for the industry as far as, you know, games taking many years now to complete. Having these tools in order to cut down on production is ideal for everyone involved.
Indeed. Very well said. I also wanted to touch on this story real quick about Netflix that's bouncing around the industry right now. A website called The Information had this interesting article about, I guess, Netflix dumping or looking to dump a bunch of money into some sort of Apple Arcade style service that would run alongside parallel to their movies and television shows subscription service. And this was later confirmed, I guess, in some way by GameSpot. And they scored this statement, and a Netflix spokesperson said, quote, "Our members value the variety and quality of our content. It's why we've continually expanded our offering from series to documentaries, film, local language originals, and reality TV. Members also enjoy engaging more directly with stories they love through interactive shows like Bandersnatch and You vs. Wild, or with games based on Stranger Things, La Casa de Papel," I don't know if I'm saying that right, "and To All the Boys. So we're excited to do more with interactive entertainment." Chris, I'm a little concerned about this because I'm actually interested in how it relates to PlayStation as well, because it's basically a meta game service that will be available on PlayStation, and we don't have any of those. So I don't know how that works, or if it will work on PlayStation, or if it will only be on smart TVs or whatever. But apart from that, I always feel like dumping money and because it sounds like, so what, as we understand it, they are basically approaching notable people in the industry and trying to poach them to go to them. I think we've seen with Amazon recently that this just simply doesn't work. And I'm wondering, do you think that Netflix can get involved in this in a way that makes sense for them? Because to be fair, they work with production companies and have a really wonderful output, as they said, of all sorts of different things.
I think this is Netflix stretching themselves a little too thin. I don't know. Even just, let me back up a little bit. Even just the premise of, okay, you launched Netflix on your PS5, and then there are games available to play or potentially to purchase. I don't know what their strategy is through Netflix within the PlayStation Network. That is weird. And I don't know if that's even going to be allowed. I don't know if Sony would allow that. You could see if they do that, there's a potential where either Netflix is off of PSN entirely, or they're just not allowed to put games on anything other than their browser application, or, I don't know, maybe like TVs or stuff like that, where it's not as direct a competition. It seems a little weird, but also even just beyond that weird kind of like minefield of, just figuring out how that shit's going to work. Like you said with Amazon, you can't just throw money at an idea like this and just sort of expect, oh, we're in entertainment as well, we could figure this out. No, it's a very different skill set. Even if you hire people who are from that industry to do it, you still have to have the skill to manage the projects that, game management is not like producing a movie. It's not like producing Stranger Things. It's very, very, very different. And I feel like I don't think this is going to work. I feel highly skeptical that Netflix can invest in creating video games that are worth the majority of players' time. Like, even Bandersnatch, I remember when that came out, I was like, okay. Like, it's a neat idea, I guess, but like that's all it really was. It wasn't particularly good. It was easily like the least interesting Black Mirror narrative content that I had seen.
Yeah, I agree. It was like the worst Black Mirror.
Yeah, so like, I don't know. I don't think, I think they're seeing a lot of money to take, and they're seeing like, oh, here's an industry that we should get involved in, but I don't think they have the skill set to do this, and I don't think they really even, I don't think they stand even anything really to gain out of doing this.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to do, the original story talks about how they want to do something like Apple Arcade, so it would be like some sort of subscription with their own content. And like you said, it's like some meta gaming service. We don't have it because we have subscriptions. There's like the EA Play, for instance, subscription, but Sony gets a cut of that in their PlayStation games, so it's not like it's the end of the world. I'm wondering, Dustin, do you feel like this is going to happen? I mean, it's not something Sony has to worry about for a while, but I feel like I agree with Chris. I don't understand. I don't know if they really care, but I feel like game consoles are still really important ways for people to watch Netflix. And I don't think they're going to take Netflix off, but I think that they're just going to make you use a smart TV to do this kind of stuff. And it just seems like it could be maybe even detrimental to the platform holders.
Right. I think Chris kind of said a lot of my thoughts as well. I guess the one thing that's worth bringing up is that their involvement in video games goes beyond, an interactive thing like Bandersnatch or whatever, which wasn't very good. Also, they converted Minecraft Story Mode, the Telltale game, onto Netflix. You can like, I'm pretty sure it's not as robust. Like it's mainly just like making choices, but there's some kind of playable version of Minecraft Story Mode. So this is something that they've been toying around very directly with video games as well. I'm curious about how that translates to something more interactive than just like a choose your own adventure, but that is where things get sticky when you start to have meta gaming services on established platforms. That's kind of not quite what Epic and Apple are dealing with now, but that is something that Apple is like, that's why Microsoft had such a hard time getting Game Pass onto iPhone, is because of that. So I'm wondering if Sony would also kind of be like, let's not do that.
Yeah, we'll see. Something to keep an eye on.
Well, Sony definitely wouldn't allow, like, of the big three, Sony and Nintendo at the very least are definitely not going to jump for that.
Guys, the Uncharted movie. The New York Times wrote about it in a story called Scrounging for Hits. Hollywood goes back to the video game well. We see a new screenshot here of Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland as somehow, I guess, as Nathan Drake and Sully. And there's some interesting stuff in here. They talked to some people from Sony. Kizzlebash is in there and a few others. And so, Dustin, let's just kick it over to you. What are you thinking about this? I mean, this looks just iconic. I mean, this looks just like it's out of the video game itself.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He just looks perfectly Nathan Drake. He looks so stoic, the way he holds that the flashlight. I just am instantly getting that he's got a vibe for the character, but in reality, I feel nothing from this, which is, I mean, just one simple image. I'm not trying to like treat it like this is horrible how he's holding a flashlight. Like, I don't know. I just
it looks like a photo of Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland at a museum.
Yeah.
It doesn't none of this looks like even the hair is wrong on Tom Holland, you know. It's not even like Nathan Drake's like styled hair. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know, why do they do this?
I don't know. There's interesting stuff in the article about a few other products. So there was a rumor that God of War was going to become a movie or a TV series, and Sony outright declines that they're even looking into that. But they did confirm what we know. I mean, The Last of Us obviously coming, but Twisted Metal obviously also coming, television show, and a Ghost of Tsushima television show. So they're investing heavily into this place. I will say this, I have decided that I'm going to go see this movie when it comes out. In fact, I'll go see it like the day it comes out. And then we'll do a Sacred Symbols Plus episode about it. And I'll give it a chance. I mean, I know Uncharted. I love Uncharted. By the way, this movie cost $120 million to make. I just don't think so, guys. So
yeah, it's also, I mean, it's hard because like obviously we've talked about this before, and you know, Tom Holland kind of sandbagged the movie a little bit when he was talking about it last time. That's the last time we even talked about it on the show. And even just the framing of this article is like kind of like a backhanded kind of like scrounging for hits. Hollywood goes back to the video game well. It's like it's almost like even just the framing of this article seems kind of, you know, negative. Yeah. And I don't know, man. Like, we'll see. Like, I'm not like excited to hate the movie or anything. I'm just saying, like, this just looks like two actors at a fucking museum. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't look like it doesn't particularly to me scream Uncharted or anything. If he was like swinging or something, maybe, you know. Yeah. But it's just like him. It's just the two actors hanging out.
Well, what I was thinking about that too, about the screenshot, was that was what they decided to release. They scrubbed through everything they had, and they're like, we got to give the New York Times, the gray lady, right, the paper of record, we got to give them the hot Uncharted screenshot, guys. And that's what they came up with. So that was kind of loud to me as well. I mean, maybe they don't want to show too much. We don't know much about the game. It seems to be a prequel, right? So, or the movie, it seems to be a prequel. I know a lot of people are, Dustin, what is your concern level about Sullivan's mustache?
Well, I mean, Mark Wahlberg, he looks like when you're on a field trip in elementary school, and then there's the one kid's dad that's like an alcoholic, and he just doesn't even really want to be there. He's like holding one of the kids' backpack.
Sure.
He just, I mean, I don't know. Well, that's like the iconic part of Sully is his mustache.
Yeah, and his Hawaiian shirt and his Magnum his Magnum pistol. You know, there is like he has an aesthetic. Now but even when I don't want to. Can I spoil Uncharted? I can spoil Uncharted 3 at this point, right? I mean, when you see him, game came out 10 years ago. Yeah. By the way, so you just skip ahead a few. But when Sully meets young Drake in like the early chapters in the flashback sequence, he still has that look about him, doesn't he? I mean, like the general Sully aesthetic. He's just not old, but everything else about him was the same. I don't know. Like, it would have been cooler to see them like in some, what would have been a cool screenshot, them in like some sort of dimly lit room, maps and documents over the table, Sully chomping on a cigar, and Drake trying to fit together like some sort of amulet, like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but
looks like Night at the Museum.
Yes,
it does. Yeah. Like, actually,
I don't know. I'm trying to be open-minded about it, but I agree with you, Dustin. I mean, we said it so many times, like that GQ interview with Tom Holland, which I tweeted out last week, again, to remind everyone what he said. He just totally sandbags the movie. It's just not good. So anyway, all right. So at this point, we're going to talk about Horizon Forbidden West, which is going to receive, from when we're recording this, a state of play where we're going to see gameplay for the first time. So we're going to do a little interstitial, put it right here, and then we'll continue with the show, which we're going to continue to record now. So Dustin, slip it in right here. All right, boys, as promised, we are returning after we've already recorded this entire other episode, or the rest of this episode. It's not another episode. I don't really know why I said that, but we've watched this Horizon Forbidden West presentation. I don't know how much we have to say about it, but there were, 14 minutes of gameplay in there, and then some interviews with the creative director and etc. So we got a little bit of story detail and all of that. We can talk about whatever you guys like, but Chris, let's just start with you. What did you think of what we saw? It's the first time we've really seen the game.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it looked good. It looks, combat looks a little bit more fluid. There's a little bit more verticality to it. But also, it looks like more Horizon. It looks like Horizon again, and I think that's what people want anyway. I don't think it looks bad at all. I think it looks pretty like graphically, it looks pretty impressive. Even, I mean, obviously, it's running on PS5. This one, we didn't get a confirmed 2021 though, which is kind of weird. I thought that was bizarre. I thought for sure there was going to be some release date confirmation today, but
you would assume so.
But overall, I think it looks like Horizon Zero Dawn, but a little bit more polished, which is really all that game needed, in my opinion. It's going to be hard for me to judge how the combat is, because that's something that I need to feel, but it looks improved enough for me to be like, okay, this is what I needed personally, as somebody who found the moment-to-moment gameplay in the first Horizon a little bit off in certain places, and largely because, Guerrilla is typically like a first-person shooter studio. That's what that's what they cut their teeth on, and that was their first foray into third-person open world, action adventure. And I think now it looks like they've ironed out most of the kinks. But I don't know if I have that much to say about it, aside from I think it looks good.
Yeah, I was kind of left with that impression as well. I think I agree with you. Like it looks like more Horizon, so doesn't look like it's reinventing the wheel in any way, and it looks fun. It looks a little bit more vertical. It looks a little quicker. I mean, I have a total crush on Aloy. I think she's totally an awesome character, and so it's cool to see her back in action. I think she's rad. But I was actually again taken with the release date, which we can get into in a little while. I was waiting. I thought that's what they were going to say at the end, and they very conspicuously avoided all mention of release, which tells me something, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But I was actually left more smitten with the lore, Dustin. I'm a huge lore guy. I love writing lore for our games, and I love reading lore in games and learning about universes and worlds and all of that. And this idea of a raider clan that can override the machines to such a degree that they're painting them and designing shit on them. It was actually really cool. The world looks more lived in and dirty in that way. It's much more tribalistic, which was always something that was Horizon always had that American Indian kind of feel to it anyway. But what did you think about that? I loved seeing like the war paint on the animals. Like you would see war paint on a war elephant, you know, in the Alps or something like that. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's more what I was taken by than the gameplay itself.
Yeah, I thought that was a really neat aspect. I really liked the robot elephant or whatever that had the
tremor tusk.
Yes,
like they called it. Yeah,
and it had they had like built stuff on top of it, like it was like a war, you know, thing. But I loved when she took it down. Well, I think the top, like the thing they built on top fell off, and I really was like, whoa, that destruction looks pretty good. And actually, there's a part where it also like ran into a wall, and the destruction looked really cool. Mm-hmm. So I was interested in that from a technical aspect, but also just how beautiful it was when they went underwater, and it felt really alive. Which I guess if you think about it, like a 1,000 years of untouched ocean, the level of coral reef would be, you know, crazy.
Yeah,
but
reclamation,
right? And the one other thing, so I know this isn't about the lore like you asked, but
it's okay.
I thought it was cool when they did a breakdown at the end that talked about like, oh, here's the specific different things about this game. Here's what we're, you know, to look for. I liked how when this game came out in 2017, it came out at the same time as Zelda Breath of the Wild, which they're very different, but also somewhat you can compare them. I mean, they're both big open world games, but a lot of people, when they played Horizon, were like, man, I wish I could climb more stuff, and I wish I could glide places. And that was the first two things they highlighted, is that you can climb a lot more in the open world, and then she had that awesome gliding thing. So I thought that was cool. I like it adds another layer of freedom to your world.
Definitely. And seeing San Francisco, it was clear it was San Francisco to me before we saw the bridge, but Golden Gate Bridge, but it was because you saw like a trolley and a few other hints. But I lived in San Francisco, as you guys know, for a decade, and I could imagine where she was even seeing the bridge from that perspective. It's like Pack Heights and the marina and all of that. So it's kind of cool. It felt familiar to me in that way. I like seeing Aloy more confident, braggadocious in battle, a little bit different. She always had a lot of confidence since she was a child, we learned, but I liked seeing that as well. And then I liked to the point of it's almost too tropical for the Bay Area. And so we see that the map has changed. When we see the map of the world, we see that there's like basically a huge ocean. California is kind of like a peninsula now, and there's some other things. So a lot of cool, again, lore stuff. And I like some of the weapons too. The glue ball, like the adhesive gun, like that shot the yellow adhesive was really neat. And we saw the radial quickly, which looked clean. It looked actually a lot like the original, and that stuff often changes. I don't remember what the name of the planet is, but the tropical planet in Rogue One, where like they're fighting on the you know what I'm talking about?
I forgot.
It's like the archive. It's like the archive planet where they're like fighting around it, and the AT-ATs are in like the water and in the ocean, and like the palm trees are everywhere. Yeah, Scarif. That's what it kind of reminded me of, actually. Yeah, like totally reminded me of that. So, very cool stuff. We learned a little bit about the tribes and all of this. I'm reading my notes here, but otherwise, the other thing I just wanted to ask before we go, it looks like, by the way, they're going to go to Los Angeles. It seemed on the map. Maybe San Diego or something like that. It's hard to kind of tell, but it looked like they were moving that way. Chris, I'm curious when you think the game will be released, and when you think they'll tell us when the game is being released. And this is what I was going to say earlier is I don't know if they're being cagey on purpose, and it's exciting. Like we're seeing Horizon for the first time, Horizon Forbidden West for the first time. So it's like, all right, let everyone digest the gameplay and talk about it. We don't need to also have a release date. But part of me is also like, well, why wouldn't you do this and like show the special edition? It's May, it's late May, it's almost June. Like if it's coming out in November, it's time to like start showing this stuff and you could start taking pre-orders. And I mean, how long have we been able to fucking pre-order Deathloop? You know?
Yeah.
So I just, to me, I don't know exactly how to read it. I can imagine like a situation where in literally 3 weeks or a month, they're like, the game's coming out November 15th or something. And then I can imagine that they just literally don't say anything until September, at which point they're like, the game is coming in Q2 or something. So I'm sorry, I'm talking about Chris. When do you think we'll learn about when the game's coming out, and when do you think the game will come out?
I assume that Sony is going to be active in some capacity during E3. I have to assume that like they're going to be a little bit more forthcoming with stuff that's stuff that they're working on around that time. Even though they say, you know, we don't participate in E3, it's like, come on, like you do, you just don't by name, you know,
right.
Like the same thing that Nintendo did. It's like we're not gonna do E3 anymore, except we're gonna go the day before E3, and it's a big fucking, you know, it's. I imagine we're going to hear about it there. I think maybe they did probably just want to get the gameplay out there, get people talking about it, and then during that time they'll be like, hey, here's the release date, here's the special edition, and maybe here's a surprise or fucking whatever. I could see that being the strategy, but it's a little weird. We're getting to a point now where, like you said, it's May. We've come off of a year of delay after delay after delay, not for Horizon Zero Dawn, but for like every video game ever. So yeah. It's a little antsy when you see a trailer like this and you see a gameplay deep dive and there's no release date. Because immediately what I thought was like, oh, is this further away than, like, is God of War gonna shadow drop? That's the first thing that came to my head. But I think more realistically, I think we're probably going to see this game in fall of this year. There's too much gameplay here. I don't know if you do a gameplay deep dive if you're not pretty close to launch. Which means we're even further away from God of War than we even thought we were. But I would imagine... I feel like either September or October. I don't think November is it. I don't think they're going to put it out in November. I think November's steeped in competition.
Yeah.
And it would be wise to just although maybe they want that. Maybe they want the attention on PlayStation in that period of time. I could see that. But they don't typically release games in that window. So it would be interesting to do. I would assume around then. But we have to be getting this game this year, right? Like, there's no way. I would assume, I don't know. I mean, of course, the original came out in February, so this could be another February release, of which it would have been like 5 years almost to the month. It would be 5 years to the month if they did that. But I don't know, Dustin. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that they're being intentionally? Are they obfuscating because they don't know, or are they obfuscating because they don't want to say yet? Because it really could be just that they don't want to distract from the gameplay and they'll have another beat in the media by releasing the date. They don't have to show anything else for that.
Right. They don't have to play all their cards with this game at once. It'll be another little exciting burst at whatever their fake E3 thing will be to show the date. And I think Chris, I'm actually like almost in total agreement with everything Chris said, but I'm going to lean probably more towards October than September, just in the fact that they have Deathloop on September 14th, which in one sense they wouldn't want to crowd it, but I don't know. That's not one of their first party. It's a kind of a weird space now. Yeah, it's also a Microsoft game, so maybe they might just do that just out of like, hey. Yeah. You know? I don't know.
Yeah, it's worth noting. I kept saying like that game is discounted on PlayStation Plus and has been to pre-order it since it, which you don't really ever see for this long. So I don't know. There's something up there. I'll disagree with you guys. I think that they're not going to make it this year. I think maybe they're keeping their options open, but this is a really important game to get right. It's true that they don't really release games in Q4 typically. They sometimes do. Gran Turismo, for instance, comes out. You know, like those games sneak in, and obviously like Beyond Two Souls was and the launch games for consoles. But I'm gonna say February, like the same, like 5 years. Maybe they even do 5 years from the week or something to when the original came out. They did release that full standalone DLC, so they've been working hard, and I don't think it's really that long for them to have taken, especially in COVID. I think they need something this fall, but I just don't think it's going to be ready to go, and I think that pushes God of War to like the fall.
Yeah, because there's no way that God of War is going to be ready. There's no way they're just going to be like, oh, surprise, here's God of War.
No, they would never do that
year.
with God of War. And I don't think you can release God of War I don't think you can release it before Horizon because it's a PS5 only game. I think you need to get this game out of the way, very similar to Miles Morales, and then you move on Didn't
Spider-Man PS4 launch in September? Am I wrong? Is that...
It did launch in September, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
September 2018, as I recall.
Yeah, so there's precedent for that. I think.
Yeah. To be clear, I said Q4, so that's still Q3. So I just.
Oh right.
I agree with you completely. September's because like Until Dawn came out in that window and other games too. Like I think that's a great time to release games. Generally speaking, like people are back in school and like, you're studying and you're tired and you're back at sports and you like want a game to play. I feel like that's a perfect time.
Yeah.
That back to school era. I connect lots of games like Mega Man Legends and like Xenogears and shit like that and Brave Fencer Musashi. I connect all of those to like the beginning of school years. Tales of Destiny.
Oh yeah,
like
totally.
Those games. I couldn't wait to come back. Like, I didn't want to be back in school. I couldn't wait to come home. So it's that sort of thing as well. So yeah, all right. So you guys are saying, well, Chris says September. Dustin, you say October?
Sure.
Okay. Well, is that what you say? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well, I don't really know. I'm gonna go with October. I feel like it's
okay.
I feel like it's this year for sure.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I think.
Okay.
I think they're going to want to get out before November because November is a big month.
Yeah, and I think the longer you wait, there's a diminishing return because it's not only November, it's past that as this glut of games that has been delayed is going to come out. So we keep saying, like, I think Q1, Q2, 2022, all the way through to the end of 2023 is going to be a shit show of just twice as many games coming out as were meant to come out, basically. And it's going to be very competitive. It's going to be fun, but Sony's got to kind of navigate around that as well. But I think that they want to, and I think it's possible they hit this, and I'm not trying to, because I'm going to definitively say I think it's coming next year. I think it's possible that that's what they want is for it to come this year. But I think it's very weird, even if you don't show the release date, to say like, we can't wait for you to play the game later this year. I mean, that's all you have to say is like, we'll show you, you'll see more of the game leading up to its release later this year. They don't even say anything like that. So I just think that's too weird. It's not that the release date itself is missing. It's that there's no telegraphing. So yeah, I will say February, 5 years from the date or so from the original release of Horizon. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it comes out next week. That'd be awesome, but it's not going to. And that would really interfere with Ratchet as well. That would be really unfair to Ratchet. All right, boys, let's jump back into the regular episode. Oh, Dustin, do you have something to say?
No, I was going to cue us in with a cool transition.
Oh, you totally messed me up. I'm sorry.
Well, maybe you messed me up. Did you think about that?
No, I didn't. I did think about that, and that's why I said I'm sorry. And then you yelled at me anyway, even after I just I was contrite.
There's conflict in this family.
Yeah. All right. Back to the show. All right, guys. Those robot dinosaurs, man.
Whoa, shit. Crazy. I'm excited to see Child Aloy again in her Chucky looking glory.
All right, let's talk about the games we're playing. Chris, we'll start with you. It says you're playing Knockout City, and I was seeing that, first of all, that you're really into it, and then a lot of people are pretty praiseworthy, or this game seems to be rather pretty praiseworthy. What do you have to say about it?
Yeah, honestly, it took me by surprise. People were in my Twitch chat being like, you should play Knockout City. I think you'd like it. And it was like, all right, well, and at first I was like, nah, I don't need to. And then they're like, it's on Game Pass, it's free. And I was like, well, damn it. Okay, now I don't have an excuse. So I went and I downloaded it and I played a little bit of it. And it's kind of surprising. It's genuinely pretty fun. This is, by the way, for anybody who hasn't been paying attention, this is the competitive multiplayer, like dodgeball, kind of arena shooter thing. It's very weird, but it's really surprisingly deep. It's got a tech skill element to it that I wasn't anticipating. It reminds me somehow of like old school arena shooters from like Quake, and it also reminds me of like Melee. Like just the amount of like button interactivity that you have on the face buttons. Like I feel like a lot of like, you know, FPS or third person shooters or, you know, even just a lot of competitive games, you know, it's all in the triggers, you know, like you shoot, you throw a grenade, you aim down sights. It's a lot of the action is in the triggers, but there's a lot of like dodging with the X button and like canceling out your jump animation with like the B button and like just there's a lot of tech skill here that I was not anticipating. I will say, aesthetically, it bothers the hell out of me because it just looks like every single other video game that's come out over the last fucking 5 years. That's just like, oh, it's Fortnite, but not really. It actually, in fairness, this game does remind me a lot more of Sunset Overdrive than like Fortnite, aesthetically and gameplay wise. But it's surprisingly pretty good, man. I don't know if it's got longevity. I don't know if it's got legs on it. I don't know if it can really, you know, become a big thing or anything. But from what I've played so far, it's scratching an interesting itch. I think it plays really well. It's satisfying. The sound of like a ball hitting somebody and having that really nostalgic like boom, like that kickball sound is like weirdly comforting. It's fun. It's genuinely a fun little video game, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it.
It's interesting because, yeah, this game just kind of popped up. It seemed to me to be almost a Destruction All-Stars type throwaway game. I mean, it looks like fucking Destruction All-Stars, which like is what you're saying. All these games just kind of blur together in my mind. But the response has been really positive, and Nick Believe It wrote into us on Patreon about another aspect that is good for this game, which is, of course, it's published by Electronic Arts, and so this is germane to this. He says, so while we don't know about the longevity, I would say Knockout City being free for its first 10 days combined with strong word of mouth has definitely undone a lot of the initial negative thoughts on it. The thing is, this game is just included in EA Play. While Colin might be old-fashioned and wondering immediately about the game's sales, I wonder if the positive word of mouth is going to lead to an uptick in EA Play subscriptions, specifically making game sales a much worse measure of the game's success. So I was thinking about this too, and Nick, and it's an interesting question because no, you can't judge this game based on the sales merits. It's completely meaningless. I do think it's a bait for EA Play and seems to be a pretty effective one. The studio that made the game, Velen, is new. This is their first major game. I mean, I think they've done some contract work, but they're a pretty big team, actually. I didn't realize they're almost 100 people. So I didn't think that this game was I guess I was just kind of misinterpreting even the very scope of the game, but I don't know. I'm glad, Chris, that you like it, and I'm happy that a lot of people out there are enjoying it. It also says you're playing Resident Evil 8 Village still, so anything new to say about that?
No, I still like it. I'm in there's a factory portion, which I don't think is too much of a spoiler. It's like, you know, but it's I don't know how far I am into it. The game's act structure is a little confusing. Because I feel like I'm at the end, but I'm told that I'm not. So it's like, okay, feels like I am. But you know, this factory level is I got to it, and I still really like the game. I'm still really over the moon about it. I think it's great. I think it might be like one of my favorite Resident Evils. Like, it's definitely in the top. It's definitely in the top 3 for me. Like, I think right now it's 4-2 remake Village for me right now. And, you know, I don't have anything else to say about it other than I'm enjoying it still. You know,
that's a pretty good list. I was just because I had to think about it. 4-2 remake Village. I think I agree with you on 4 and 2 remake. Mm-hmm. I don't know about Village yet. That's actually though. Who could even deny 4 and then 2 remake? I think that's clear. Yeah. I would like to throw a 0 in there though. I do think the old GameCube game, very underrated, and I'd like to give that some love as well. I got to get back to it. I actually just stopped. I've been using a walkthrough towards the end because I just want to find all of the I'm trying to maximize the amount of money I make in the game so that I can buy more shit so that I can play future runs with better items. And so I know I'm like right at the last boss, like the last boss gauntlet. And for some reason I just a few days ago stopped because I'm like, I don't. You want to sit there and be in the mood to watch the ending and all that. So I got to like sit there and do that. But I want to play the game again because I feel like, and we're going to do a spoiler cast and review discussion. I guess Chris and I will do it, and whoever Dustin wants to be in. Did you play it? You played it, right? So yeah, the three of us can do it. And I want to get into the fact that like, I think I don't understand the story at all, actually. And I pay close attention. I don't know. I have so many questions and I don't know how they're going to answer them. So I want to play it again with like a grenade launcher unlimited or something like that. So I don't have to worry about enemies and really just be able to slink around, explore, reread everything. And, you know, that you find in the environment. Like its connection to Umbrella and stuff is very cool, but I'm a little confused, I guess. I'm actually very confused about like much more confused than I've ever been in a Resident Evil game. So.
It is. I think it's because it's so, it feels like much more of like an anthology, you know, than other Resident Evil games. It feels like an anthology horror game. Like it really does. It feels like, you know, here's Castle Dimitrescu, here's, you know, the swamp, here's, you know, the factory, here's the dollhouse. There's a lot of different elements to it, and they all feel kind of like, they all weirdly feel self-contained. And I think that's kind of the thing that leads to some of the confusion, because they are like obviously connected with like, you know, the boxes that you get from each of them, and, you know, obviously overall narratively they're overarching. But at the same time, like when you're in Castle Dimitrescu, you're not thinking about the Fishman. You know, never. When you're in the fish area, you're not thinking about the, you know, the factory dude. It's very, these are very isolating areas. So when you try and connect them, it's kind of hard for it not to feel disjointed. Or at least that's in my experience, because I'm in the same boat as you, where I'm like, I don't really have any idea what's going on. I love it. It's fun, and I love these characters, and just the interaction of all these characters with each other is great. But I have no idea what the hell's going on. But also, I don't really care about Ethan or his stupid wife or his daughter. I really
his wife and daughter I could give a fuck less about. But I there's a lot that I'm curious about with Ethan himself. I guess we'll just save it for the show. Yeah. When we do it in the coming weeks, which we certainly will. All right, Dustin. Well, let's move on to you. Why are you playing Balan Wonderland?
Wow. Yeah, that is a great question.
I'm sorry, Wonderworld.
That is a fantastic question, Colin. Yeah. It started as a joke on my channel, on my Twitch channel. And as some jokes do, just become a reality. And in this was, I mean, my reality, my hell, maybe, for this stream that I did. But no, the only thing I really want to say about it, I mean, it is a joke that I was playing it, but it's really not as bad, I think, as a lot of people think, just in the fact that people are treating this like it's an unplayable mess. It's not. It's just not fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's not fun. In fact, I'm actually quite intrigued by I mean, there's so many layers of interest. The fact that they named their company, I think it's Balan Company. And wait, hold on. I've got the box here, and it does indeed say, yeah, it's Balan Company. So I'm like, how unfortunate that this new startup with Yuji Naka, they named themselves after this game.
Yeah. How many times do I have to say to not do that, by the way? I mean, I don't. I always made fun of 343 and the Coalition and stuff. It's like, stop doing that. You're tethering yourself to other products. It's stupid.
Yeah. But I learned that there's like a companion short story or novel that goes with it.
God bless. God bless them.
I'm playing, dude, like, I don't know what's going on in this game. You're like, these kids go in this theater. There's this weird, creepy. Balan? Is he a man? Yeah. What is he? We don't know.
He looks like, this is an obscure reference, but he kind of looks like Magic Man from Rockman and Bass. And if people want to go look in Magic Man, if people want to go look, there's a connection between that man and Magic Man from Rockman. It's Rockman and Forte, actually, or Mega Man and Bass. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and Magic Man is actually way cooler. I mean, that's an awesome character, actually. But so, yeah, my suspicion was it wasn't as bad as was being said. I'm sure it's not fun. It doesn't look fun at all, but I wonder what Square Enix was thinking. I actually also wonder how they're feeling. I wonder, the game is bombed, I assume. So,
yeah. Well, I want to know. I want to be a fly on the wall. Like, clearly there was a grand plan. They had a book ready. They had the game ready. They named the company. Like the game has clear production value. Like you can see when the Square Enix cutscenes kick in, and it's like surprisingly gorgeous but off. Like it's this weird duality where you're like, what am I even looking at? And so,
have you gotten to the musical numbers?
Yes, that is a thing at the end of each. So there's like 2 levels per stage, and then there's a musical number, which they went with. It's kind of like Simlish, like this weird language that they sing in. And there's like the second set of levels about this girl that's attacked by a dolphin. And then like after you fight the boss, she's friends with the dolphin again. And I just, it's great. I'm actually like, it's one of those things that's so out there that I'm enjoying that aspect of it because I like things that are weird. It's just weird. So
it's very bizarre. I can't get it out of my head the reverse draw distance shit.
Yeah,
that's like these characters.
So funny.
These characters disappear as you get closer to them. But
right.
I don't think I was never under the impression that Balan Wonderworld. I keep wanting to call it Balan Wonderland because it just
that's what I want to keep calling it too.
It seems to make more sense. But
yeah,
I was never under the assumption that this game was like Ride to Hell Retribution, or like. No. Chaser on PC. Like this isn't like some game that is just busted and like completely meritless, but at the same time like you said, its main problem is that it's just not fun. Mm-hmm. It's just weird and just confusing, and I just remember seeing the screen for the controls, and every single button does the same thing.
Dude, that's a really weird aspect is that even in the menus, like I was trying to press circle to go back, you can't do it. Every button, every face button of the, triangle, circle, square, cross, they're the sacred symbols. They're all confirm. So you have to go down to like the back button or whatever in order to go back.
That's so funny, man.
Dude, and even
Very
when you're
weird.
playing the game, all the face buttons are the same thing. The triggers, it's all just action. So you'll have certain characters, like it's all about having different costumes. Certain characters can't jump because their ability is like fire blast or whatever. So you have to, if you want to jump, you gotta switch to another costume that their action is platforming related in order to just fucking jump.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were thinking.
Isn't there a power up in that game too that like I remember reading this. I don't know if this is true, but there's a costume that you put on that turns you into a box when it feels like it.
Right. I think that was in the Donkey video, at least that's where I saw that. I have not gotten to that yet. But there was a costume where I was a lantern, and it said the light turns on randomly. So the action button was a standard jump.
Is the game dark enough for you to even need a lantern?
Let me tell you, Chris, I never used that fucking lantern one time in that level. I have no idea what the point of the lantern costume is. No idea.
God bless Balan Wonderworld, man.
It's a trip.
All right, says you're also playing Mass Effect, I assume the Legendary Edition?
Yeah, I have so little to say because I just started it today. Yeah. Other than I'm playing on PC because I was able to do, if you get EA Play Pro is $15 a month, and then you can just play it. So I have gamed the system many times for EA Play Pro, where I'll buy 1 month and then play like Jedi Fallen Order. I will play, finish it, and then cancel, and then I get in and out.
That is your right.
For $15. Yeah. So I didn't know how much if I'm going to want to play all 3 or whatever, and then even then I could probably blitz through it in a month or 2 and still save money. So it's a little weird. It's really well done. Like the tech, I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, I can tell they did a lot of work. The textures super crispy. I'm playing it like 4K, probably like 90, 100 frames a second on my PC. It's great. But the animations are still kind of like early 360 stiff. So it's a weird thing where it's like, it's really crispy, but also kind of like Chuck E. Cheese, like animatronic looking at the same time. It's odd.
Yeah, there was no way around that really. Like you couldn't put it out as it was, because then it would be like, oh, no work was done. But you also couldn't really go in there and rework the entire, like, Mass Effect as a trilogy, especially. Just the idea of going through all those animations and cleaning every single like, that is, I really don't even think there's a studio that could do that. Like, it seems so tedious and time consuming and ultimately not really worth it, because there is a level of charm in those animations. And also, people get antsy when you touch classics. Right. People have their preferences about, like, oh, they got rid of this animation, but I really loved that animation. Why would they do that? I'm the same way. I'm very much like that. I very much want the upgrade in resolution, but I don't necessarily want the game to feel different, because that's why I'm going back. Obviously, with Mass Effect, it's a little different because the gameplay was, like, pretty freaking jank, even back in the day. So, it's a little bit more forgivable with that, but I'm looking forward to jumping into it. I think once I finish with Resident Evil 8, I want to jump into Mass Effect, because I've never actually played the original Mass Effect front to back. I never finished it. I jumped into 2 and finished 3, and I never went back to 1 because it controlled so painfully that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be interested to see what you think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna save. I'm actually, like I said, people are upset about it, but I'm gonna go back to the PS3 versions just to clean up those platinums, and then I'll save the Legendary Edition for another day, another time. Callum Huggins wrote into us on Patreon, though, and he says, "Hey, CDC, I recently picked up Mass Effect Legendary Edition and have since beat the first game in around 12 hours, much to the dismay of my friends who claim I mainlined the game. Although I had argued the sense of urgency of the main story kept me hooked, but it got me wondering, how do you all approach side content in RPGs like Mass Effect? Do you purposely go out of your way to complete side missions, or do you see what takes your fancy in the moment? Perhaps subconsciously, I'm favoring experiencing more universes rather than spending longer in one. Time is an increasingly rare commodity for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts." I don't want to get into, like, this is the way you need to play games kind of thing. We talk about that all the time. People are annoying as shit about that. But I'm shocked that anyone would want to play Mass Effect like that. It's just not... 12 hours is unimaginable. I mean, the original Mass Effect is like a 40 to 50 plus hour game. I think it's pretty well known of being that long. So, I mean, I actually just played it all the way through last year for Knockback again, and I hadn't played it for years. It's been longer since I played 2 and 3, but I wouldn't ever play Mass Effect like that. The beauty of Mass Effect is all the side missions and the content and, like, taking your time and so Dustin, you're early in your walk or playthrough of the game. Are you gonna be very deliberate in your approach?
Oh yeah, this is gonna be, well, maybe I should buy it. Now I'm thinking about this, because I really do want to take my time, because especially thinking back to Mass Effect 3, I think I really did mainline that game because I wanted to know how it ended very badly. So I do want to take my time and do some side quests, but it really depends on the game for me and the quality of the side quests. Side quests, I mean, it's obvious, but are not created equal. For example,
certainly not.
Something we talked about in our Nier spoiler cast is the side quests in that game suck. They don't add anything to the experience of the game. They don't add to the world. They're boring. They're just ways to get more money. So that's not the case in Mass Effect. Mass Effect, it's like world building or character building, especially in 2. You have to do the side quests in 2 or you're really screwing up.
Yeah, when you go to the suicide mission, right?
Yeah.
I hear you, what you're saying, Callum, but I wouldn't recommend playing Mass Effect like that. I do appreciate what he's saying. Like, he wants to experience more universes in his limited amount of time. I think that's fair, but I think my personal encouragement for you is that is a universe worth even missing a couple of other universes for, if you just see it properly. If time is of the essence, you're not really getting Mass Effect if you play it that way, in my opinion. But you're right, Dustin. You couldn't possibly play 2 or 3 successfully, or 2 definitely couldn't be played like that unless you. Well, I don't want to spoil it. Can you spoil? Yeah, that game is ancient at this point.
Yeah, but people are playing
that's like 12
it right
years
now.
ago. That's true. Yeah, you know what? I'll leave it.
2 is so good that I would argue you shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm not going to. Why would I do that? All right, I'm playing 2 games, very different games right now. I'm still playing Returnal, and I had this little tweet thread a few days ago that got a lot of feedback from people where I was saying that this game is very unique in that, well, we had said last week, first of all, the predicate being everything I like about the game, I still like from the very beginning. Everything I don't like is the stuff I still don't like. But there's like a brain worm in this game where I feel kind of personally annoyed that I can't beat it. It's actually bothering me. And I put it to Micah when we were discussing this. She plays games, so she understands what I'm saying, where I ended up walking away from Bloodborne near the end of the game because I just moved on to other things I wasn't good enough to play when I went back, and so I just kind of let it go. But I know, generally speaking, I can beat Bloodborne. You can brute force your way into beating Bloodborne by just making your character stronger. There's ways to manage the system in such a way that it's not only skill-based, but also based on how you spend your souls or whatever, and your items and your equipment. This game doesn't have that. It's a pure test of skill, and also RNG, which I know is annoying a lot of people, including me. There are things that I've never seen at all. I don't even know what people are talking about half the time. I played this game for probably 40 hours now. And I just can't stop playing it. Like, I sit down and I'm like, and then I just spend a couple of hours playing the game and then I die. And that was the big thing that I was saying is so unique about it, and why I'm really fascinated by it as a game designer and writer myself, although I wouldn't make my games like this. I don't know that there's any other game that falls apart so quickly when you're dying and then just gets you right back to the beginning and you can't even process it. And that in and of itself is an emotional experience that only video games can deliver. And I realize that about Returnal, that it touches me in a specific way where I'm like, nothing else has, other games can do this, but nothing else could do this. And so I'm intrigued by it, and it's haunting me. The game is, people were saying like your tweets sound like Celine herself talking in the game, because I'm like, it's just taunting me, and I have to see it through. Like I don't know how long it's going to take or if I'm going to really do it, but I feel like when I got through the first biome, it was like, I need to prove myself that I can do this. Just get this monkey off my back. And I did. Then I got through the second world and I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable walking away now. And then I just started playing the third world over and over again and can't even get back to the goddamn boss. And it's just infuriating. And I love that. I don't know. There's just something. It's just like, it's been such an interesting seesaw and roller coaster with this game for me.
Yeah. It's a great game, I think. I just think, all of our complaints, obviously, we've talked endlessly about it, but like, just to avoid dogpiling on it again, because I know some people are annoyed. I know that we keep bashing Returnal. I think it's great, and I think it's proof in my mind that gameplay really is king. Like, you can have, a progression system that is completely messed up. You could have frustrating RNG. You could have literally repetitive level design. You can have difficulty spikes, but if that core gameplay is just satisfying, then that's really the main thing. That's really the only thing that ultimately matters. It's like, is this game fun to play? And it is. It's super enjoyable. I haven't touched it in a while just because I'm distracted by a lot, but I want to beat it. Like, it's definitely a game that I'm looking to finish, like, without a doubt. But that third biome, man, it's kicking my ass still.
Yeah, me too. And I'm looking at it as a game where I've talked a lot about how I used to be what I would consider very good at video games, and I am not very good at video games anymore. 2D games, to a degree, I can still kind of hang with. But my skill is atrophying. And my question with this game is, I'm like, can I beat it? I don't know. The last time I really don't encounter games very often that I just can't beat, or I just simply won't put the work in to beat. A notable example of that is Cuphead. When I got to like the third world or whatever, I was like, fuck this game. Like, I just don't, it's so beautiful. It's so fun, but it's just annoying the fuck out of me. And I just went and watched the rest of it because I was like, I'm not doing this to myself anymore. I would sit there with my Switch. And so this game kind of has like a similar quality to it. Maybe at one point, maybe I'll come back next week with this mental voyage I'm on with this game where I'm like, fuck this game. But it is a subtle component of my life right now. Like, I think about it and I just need to feel the satisfaction of getting through the third stage. And then maybe that will be good enough, but then I will create a new barrier to overcome and so on and so forth. And I think that might be the whole idea. So I wanted to give a shout out to the game. And to kind of balance things out, I've been playing Rainbow Moon on Vita. This is an old 2011, I think 2012 role-playing game, Japanese-style role-playing game made by a German studio called SideQuest. They're the guys that did the Soldner X space shooter games, the arcade games, which are awesome on PS3. And I played it in the past, but I just really enjoy this game. It's like a turn-based strategy game in the battles. It's cute. It's pretty poorly localized, so it's kind of funny unintentionally, I think. And I'm enjoying it. So I've been just playing that in bed while I'm listening to like podcasts or something at night. So that's everything we're playing, boys. And now it's time to get into the news. There are a few notable items.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to be gross or anything, but did you know that your father is probably excessively hairy? There's a really good possibility that that's true. And with Father's Day right around the corner, you may be able to help him maintain a more modern and groomed bodily appearance with Manscaped's Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. Unlike your typical buzzers, which are bulky and made for one's head, the Lawnmower 4.0 is smaller, sleeker, wireless, and is designed to be used elsewhere on a man. I mean, I guess you could conceivably shave your head with it, but it's really made to shave, well, everything else. And since it totes an adjustable blade, you don't have to go totally shorn, unless of course you want to. So whether you're talking about armpits, chests, or, Manscaped's Lawnmower 4.0 has you covered. And your dad too, who may also enjoy Manscaped's other assortment of men's grooming products, from cologne and an ear hair trimmer to wipes and a deodorant made specifically for your testicles. It's quite remarkable. As a lawnmower fan going back to those auspicious pre-4.0 days, I think you're really going to enjoy what Manscaped's high-quality man buzzer has to offer. And your dad will too, so don't forget him on Father's Day. To see what Manscaped has to offer, go to manscaped.com. That's manscaped.com. And use the code SACRED, that's SACRED, at checkout. Doing so will net you 20% off your order with free shipping. Again, to get your Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer and more, and maybe one for your dad too, and get 20% off that order with free shipping, go to manscaped.com and use the code SACRED at checkout. This first one, though, I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say about this. Number one, what is Final Fantasy Origins? According to some recent reports and rumors, it could be the name of an upcoming PlayStation 5 exclusive Final Fantasy game to be revealed at E3. What started as forum fodder ended up being seemingly confirmed by more reliable industry sources and points towards publisher Square Enix pairing with a most unusual partner, Team Ninja, owned by fellow publisher Koei Tecmo. Koei Tecmo has long been amenable to working with its rivals and has worked with Square Enix before, most notably via another of its studios, Omega Force, working on the Dragon Quest Heroes Musou titles. Team Ninja, once known for the Dead or Alive fighting franchise and the Ninja Gaiden 3D reboots, is much more known these days for Nioh. And you may recall that the fighting game Dissidia Final Fantasy NT was developed for Square Enix by Team Ninja. That game came to PS4 in 2018. Amazingly, with plans to reveal the game during its E3 presentation, Square Enix may take a cue from Team Ninja's handling of Nioh and release a public beta as soon as this summer. And yes, the rumors are pretty insistent that this game is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. This would be a notable coup for Sony, as it means they've basically scored a trifecta of major Final Fantasy exclusives for PS4 and PS5. First in the form of Final Fantasy VII Remake and its Yuffie DLC, then in the form of the still long off Final Fantasy XVI, and finally in this rumor title. Henry Maxwell wrote into us on Patreon and he says, "Hey, three amigos. With E3 just around the corner and the rumor mill in full swing, I was hoping to get your thoughts on these Final Fantasy prequel and collection rumors. According to the original Reset Era post, a Souls-like prequel to the original Final Fantasy NES game with Garland as the main character is in development. A collection for entries 1 through 6 being bundled in their original pixelated forms is also rumored to be potentially coming. If this is true, what do you think of this direction for a Final Fantasy spin-off, and will you buy the original titles again for the 100th time?" We can take those piece by piece, but Dustin, I'm eager to go to you with this first. What do you think about, first of all, the rumor, Final Fantasy Origins? There's already actually a game called Final Fantasy Origins, so I'm a little surprised by this title. Final Fantasy Origins is a very late PS1 compilation release of the original 2 Final Fantasy games. So the title, using the same title again, could be, but who knows? So what do you think about the rumor? Team Ninja seems like it would be something more Souls-like and take place potentially in the original Final Fantasy world.
Right. Yeah, this is awesome. And I mean, it does make a lot of sense in the fact that Team Ninja made it clear that they were done with Neo for a while. And that surprised some people just in the fact that they thought that, you know, it's kind of weird to end something off with 2, and especially when a lot of people thought that Neo 2 was so much significantly better than the first one. So to hear them partner with Square to make a Final Fantasy Souls-like game, I guess we'll call it, because I think the leaker then went on to say, like, it's not exactly Souls-like, but it will be clearly inspired by, kind of like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has a lot of inspiration from that. But this is great. I am really excited just because obviously I love Souls games. I love anime and Final Fantasy. So to have a anime like Souls game sounds great. I don't really know much to say other than that. Just it'll be interesting to see how they take this idea of a Final Fantasy Origins. So is this the idea I'm getting is it's a prequel to the very first Final Fantasy
it sounds
game?
like who knows what's true and what's not, but in the original Final Fantasy, the bad guy's name is Garland. It sounds like you might play as Garland in this game.
Whoa. And
so we will, I don't know if that's true or not. We'll find out. But yeah, what are you thinking about this, Chris?
I don't know. Like I never, man. Final Fantasy is something that I wish I got into earlier, because I feel like there's a level of credibility that playing games like that lends you that I feel like I don't have. I started playing games, with like side scrollers and Metroidvanias, and then I moved immediately to like 3D stuff. So when I saw like, the original Final Fantasies, by the time I had seen them, they felt like really basic and kind of like a little rudimentary, and I was just like, this isn't really my thing. And I don't know, I did like Final Fantasy VII Remake though, and the gameplay that they showed, or at least the trailer that they showed for that new one, right? Wasn't there one that was like
Final Fantasy
showed off
16.
super recent? Yeah, that gameplay wise, that looked cool as well to me. So if it's following that formula, which it seems like it is doing, except like obviously with the Team Ninja guys and a little bit more 3D action oriented and potentially Souls like, that seems like it could be pretty cool. But at the same time, and maybe this is a bit of Colin attitude rubbing off on me, I feel like a bit of a poser for jumping into a game this late. And part of me is like, man, maybe I should just like brute force my way into like one of those original Final Fantasies, because I want to be able to just prove to myself that I can play one of those things without getting bored. I feel like I have like such a childlike attention span when it comes to those games, and I want to like, at some point when I have time, I want to actually like get myself to play one of them, at least finish one of them, so I can at least say that I tried and did it.
Yeah, the original Final Fantasy is on the NES Classic, I think. And so that's an accessible way to play it. And I think you might like it. I mean, it is rudimentary, but it's actually quite complex compared to the original Dragon Quest games, like its rivals, because it's class-based. Like from the very beginning, you choose the classes of your characters. You have mages and fighters and monks and stuff. So that's kind of fun. It's an interesting game to play. But if you want to play like one of the first Final Fantasy games, you should just play 4 or 6 if you want to just play one of them. Those are absolutely excellent games. And yeah, I'm sorry.
People were telling me 6 is the one that I should.
That's one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the one I'll probably jump into. But I want to finish one of those original ones before I even consider something like this.
6 is on SNES Classic, so if you have access to that, it's on there in the form of 3. But the other thing that Henry brings up here is just this rumor of maybe 1 through 6 coming out. That's a rumor that's been around for a long time. Every time it emerges, I'm always excited but skeptical, because I would absolutely love for them to do that if they released. I don't really understand why they don't release just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 as individual games and people would buy them. absolutely put trophies and achievements on them and all the rest. I'm going to be all over those. The second those come out, be all over those games. I wanted to ask, though, about also, Dustin, well, two other things here, I guess. Koei Tecmo, very involved with Square Enix. They're kind of for hire, so that's kind of neat. Remember, Team Ninja had just made a Marvel Ultimate Alliance Switch exclusive with Nintendo. Like, these guys will work with, and they obviously worked on Metroid as well, but they'll work with anyone. So I'm wondering what you think about not only Tecmo or Koei Tecmo's relationship with Square Enix and what they're doing, but the substantial and I think underreported for now coup that Sony has scored with Square Enix. It's substantial to get 3 Final Fantasy games, all of them on your console. I mean, it kind of puts into context why Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12 came to Xbox Game Pass to kind of balance things out a little bit, because it's becoming so overwhelmingly biased towards Sony, and it's not really maybe fair to Microsoft, but this seems to me to be pretty huge. What do you think?
Yeah, it's cool that clearly Sony even now knows that they want to be the home of Japanese games. And Xbox is trying really hard to shift that. We've seen them recently get all of the Yakuza games over there. They got all the Kingdom Hearts games over there. And it's cool in the fact that we know that Sony's focusing more on blockbusters, but they're still cutting these different deals. And I mean, Final Fantasy it's not a niche Japanese game. It's very much a big blockbuster. It kind of transcends weebdom, shall we say.
Certainly,
so,
ever since 7, I would say.
Right. And I've even heard particular that like Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, there's a deal behind the scenes there. Like, it's not just they decided to release it there. They had an exclusivity deal with Sony behind the scenes, whether it was made public or not. So it's cool to see them continue to do that, just because, I don't know, for me, PlayStation is the home for my Japanese games. And I don't know if there's really good logic behind this. And, you know, I do play games on Xbox here and there, but it just wouldn't feel the same to me playing those types of games on that platform. But I'm glad they're there for people that want them and only have that option. But for me, it's always going to be PlayStation.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like you have to remember, and I'm sure a lot of the audience knows this inherently, but Sony kind of came to the rescue in some way when Square Soft at the time, when Enix was its own company and they were rivals. We'll remember, of course, that when Ultra 64 was being revealed, the first Final Fantasy footage we ever saw of that generation was running on Ultra 64 at the time in the form of like these sprites from Final Fantasy 6. It was actually really cool. But the games that Square Soft at the time wanted to make could not be realized on cartridge-based software. And PlayStation rode in on a white horse and put the princess on the back of the horse. And there are dozens of Squaresoft games on PlayStation. Some of them are huge, some of them aren't, but they've had this really solidified relationship ever since then. And even though others get the games eventually, it just seems like Sony and Square Enix, there's kind of like a wink and a nod understanding. I think it's kind of why people assume sometimes that Sony will just buy them. I hope that doesn't happen. A lot of people ask that. I'm like, I don't want that to happen. I don't want Sony to own Square Enix. That sucks. Not for Sony. It just sucks for everyone else. That would be lame as hell. But it's cool that they kind of monitor all of these relationships. I think I had brought up last week that I'm frustrated that Octopath Traveler was put on Xbox, and when it was, I was like, oh, of course it's going to come to PlayStation at the same time, and it's not on PlayStation still. So they're monitoring and maintaining, obviously with Nintendo and others, these different relationships. But Chris, I wanted to ask you about what your feeling is on these 3 Final Fantasy games. How substantial do you think it is that Sony has acquired these? We've already kind of seen the fruits of Final Fantasy VII Remake for the most part, although we'll get the PS5 port and the Yuffie DLC imminently. But Final Fantasy 16 is going to be a massive game, of course, and so too is going to be this Final Fantasy Origins, if it is what it is. So how do you think this is am I overstating the case here, or is it big?
No, I think it's pretty big. I think obviously this is like a genre that I'm not like super involved in, but I'm obviously aware how big Final Fantasy is. I think everybody who knows about video games has probably has heard about Final Fantasy. You know, like it's hard to imagine that you haven't. So securing these titles is a pretty big deal. You know, I think it's smart business. I think it makes sense. I think it is the least controversial exclusive third-party deal that Sony could really engage in outside of like games that like people don't know about, you know, like maybe like Deathloop and Ghostwire, like pre-Bethesda. It's like those are new IP, like whatever. Like it's different than like Final Fantasy, which has been established for a long time. It's been associated with PlayStation for a long time, and I totally get why they would want that relationship to continue. Like it makes perfect sense to me. I think even players like who might just have this association, like you said, with Final Fantasy and PlayStation, I totally get that. I'm big on agnosticism as far as like platform. I like games to be available in as many places as possible. But even you know, when the Crash games came out, when, you know, Crash Team Racing came out and the trilogy and the Spyro games, I wasn't getting those on Xbox. Like I was just like, it's just like, these are PlayStation games. Like they're not anymore, but to me they are.
Right.
So there's a heritage there, and I think it's smart for Sony to, you know, take advantage of that. It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. Very well said. So we'll monitor that, and this is supposed to be shown at E3, which is just in a couple of weeks. So we'll have more to say at that time. But there is more Square Enix news. I was up late last night from when we were recording, watching this, and keeping an eye on all this, of course. Number 2, during the Dragon Quest 35th anniversary live stream in Japan, publisher Square Enix announced 3 games that'll almost certainly be relevant to this show's audience. Let's start with Dragon Quest 12. The game, which was previously confirmed to be in development but lacked a title or any info, will be called Dragon Quest 12: The Flames of Fate, and further details are still scarce. Perhaps the most relevant details would be platforms, though it's highly unlikely, though certainly not unprecedented, that Dragon Quest would skip PlayStation. Dragon Quest VII launched on PS1 in 2000 and 8 came to PS2 in 2004. Then again, the series' first 6 titles ran through Nintendo hardware. 2009's Dragon Quest IX was a DS exclusive, and Japan exclusive MMO Dragon Quest X was a Wii exclusive when it launched in 2012. Dragon Quest XI came to PS4 in 2017 in Japan and 2018 in the West. Interestingly, Dragon Quest XII is aiming to have a more adult-oriented tone as reflected in its logo, and the turn-based battle system, the underpinning of the franchise going all the way back to the 1986 Famicom original, will also be altered in some way. There's no release year as of yet. There is a little bit of news, by the way, I'm just going to jump in here. The game apparently is running on Unreal Engine 5. So that's a big piece of news, and also almost certainly means it's going to come to PS5. I doubt that would run even on PS4 or Switch. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Second up is a full remake of 1988's Dragon Quest III. This is likely also a PlayStation release, though again, we don't know for sure. The game is running pretty clearly, if you look at it, on Octopath Traveler's engine, and so it could be for Switch first and foremost. There's no release date there yet for that anyway. And finally, there's a new spin-off starring brother and sister Eric and Mia from Dragon Quest XI. I really like those characters. It's called Dragon Quest Treasures, and according to the game's producer, quote, "It's an RPG, but nothing at all like a traditional one," end quote. I like that quote a lot. Likewise, its platforms and release timing are unknown. Most fundamentally, though, is this. All 3 games are aiming for simultaneous worldwide releases, something virtually unheard of in any mainline or spin-off Dragon Quest game. When I saw that, and when they announced that, I'm getting a little dark here. When I saw that, I was so excited because we always have to wait for Dragon Quest games, sometimes for years, but even with Dragon Quest XI, we waited a year. It's like unbelievable that happened. Dragon Quest obviously is so important in Japan, so I am very excited about that. And so, Dustin, let me kick it over to you. Are you interested in any of this stuff? Are you a Dragon Quest? You're not really a Dragon Quest person, are you?
Not really. I mean, I put a decent amount of time into 11, but I think it's too traditional for me. And it's been funny because Holly has been playing Dragon Quest 11 for this entire year, actually, now that I think about it. And she'll take breaks, but then she'll come back, and she's like, I think she's got over 130 hours in it, maybe at this point. And it's just like, I sometimes watch her play and I'm like, I love the art style. I love this world, but I just like the amount of grinding and repeating. I see it and I'm like, I would kill myself playing this game. Like I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
It's very traditional.
Yeah.
Very, very traditional.
Let me tell you though, Colin. So the most interesting aspect of all of these announcements is this Dragon Quest III 2D HD remake.
Yeah.
Because I believe on this show, maybe a few months ago, I was like, please remake Final Fantasy VI in the Octopath Traveler engine. And lo and behold, they are doing a remake in the Octopath Traveler engine, but it is not the one you'd expect, or at least the one I was hoping for. I'm wondering, is this a test run for Square Enix to be like, okay, let's see what the process is of remaking a game in this engine and see how it does? Because, dude, just think about think if they did this, but with like Chrono Trigger, people would lose their minds. It would be crazy. So you have to imagine that this is the testing ground where people are like, yeah, or they're thinking, yeah, let's try this out. Let's see how development goes. And maybe this is a new thing that we can start doing with some of our older beloved RPGs.
That would be nice. It's a little frustrating because Yuji Horii, when he was talking yesterday during the live stream, was saying that they're interested in maybe doing 1 and 2 as well in this form. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just do those first? Why are you going backwards? I don't understand. Like 3 is the first really beloved Dragon Quest game, and I understand that, but it just doesn't make much sense to me to handle things that way. Chris, I assume you have nothing to say about this.
Yeah, look, I'm working up the courage to get into Final Fantasy, so yeah. Dragon Quest is beyond. Sorry,
no, nothing to be sorry about.
maybe in 2030 when I'm in my wheelchair and my legs have atrophied into little bacon strips. Then maybe I'll get it. I'll have the time to pour into 130 hours of Dragon Quest, but that doesn't sound. To give you perspective, I've put 130 hours into Destiny 2 in the entirety of its existence. So that's a lot of time for just this year in Dragon Quest.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, number 3. Sony has revealed June's free PlayStation Plus games, and it's a pretty nice lineup of titles. These games are free for all PS Plus subscribers during the month, and as always, you should add them to your download list, even if you don't play them now, as you may want to later. The biggest game of the month is actually a PlayStation 4 game, Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. A couple of weeks ago, we let you know on this show that this game was coming via leaked foreign certification listings, and it's actually going to be free on PS Plus for July as well. The original Virtua Fighter 5 came to arcades in 2006 and PS3 in 2007, and is actually the last time Sega even visited its once popular fighting franchise, a series that began in arcades in 1993. On PlayStation 5, co-op spy game Operation Tango is free, but the PlayStation 4 version isn't. The game comes from studio Clever Plays, which released roguelite Leap of Fate on PS4 in 2017. And finally, players will also get Star Wars Squadrons for free on PlayStation 4 and PSVR. Launched in October of last year, Squadrons is a dogfighting game that received good reviews and came by way of Electronic Arts and its internal developer Motive, marking its first full release. Chris, this seems like a pretty strong lineup. Are you intrigued by it?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think you got a good fighting game there. I haven't played Virtua Fighter 5, but I used to like Virtua Fighter when I was younger. Like, I remember playing a demo of it, like, over and over again when I was too poor to afford anything. And, Squadrons is huge. I don't know about this other thing.
Yeah, it's like some sort of co-op.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit. It's like a spy game. I was reading, actually, rather, that in the PlayStation blog, I think that you actually have to have a microphone to play it.
Oh.
Which is interesting. Dustin, you're nodding. You're nodding.
I'm looking at the Steam page right now, and it is also cross-platform play, which is good to know. But it also has, it's like... What is it? It Takes Two, where if you get this game on PS Plus and your friend doesn't have a PS5, but they have a PC, they can download a friend pass and play with you completely for free. I would assume that seems to be the case, but I'm always interested in these like real weird, I mean, say weird in a good way, but This is a co-op game where each person has a very specific role. Like one person is the hacker, and the other person is the infiltrator. So it's like one person is guiding the other with their voice, and they can maybe see all the security cameras. It sounds cool.
When you put these games, not to beat up on Microsoft, we do praise them a lot on this show though. But when you put these games next to Xbox Gold, Live Gold games, it's like a joke. Sony is definitely doing a great job here with this stuff. And I'm interested, especially in Virtua Fighter 5 being free for 2 months. I wonder if that's going to bump a game next month. I hope not. I hope that's just a fourth game, because I already feel like they're being pretty stingy. But Star Wars Squadrons, I do want to play. Like it does look fun. I do like dogfighting games. It's kind of intriguing. So
VR.
Yeah.
Could do it.
Yeah.
Indeed. Number 4. Publisher Sega unleashed a ton of new information concerning Sonic, including the confirmation of a previously leaked game and a brand new title still to come. The biggest announcement is that of what appears to be a brand new Sonic team-developed Sonic game, and it'll almost certainly be a 3D platformer. The teaser trailer is otherwise vague, and it just shows a year date, 2022. It comes to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Perhaps less important but still notable is that Sonic Colors, which came to Wii and Nintendo DS back in 2010, is coming to PlayStation 4 on September 7th later this year. It'll be the first time the game has migrated off of Nintendo platforms, and we talked about that a few weeks ago as well. That leaked as well. If you're an old school fan of Sonic, then you'll be pleased to know that a collection called Sonic Origins is also forthcoming, though a release date wasn't given, nor platforms, though PS4 is a given. This compilation will include the first 5 Sonic games ever released: 1991's Sonic the Hedgehog and 1992's Sonic 2, both from Genesis, 1993's Sonic CD from Sega CD, and 1994's Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic & Knuckles returning to Genesis. These games have been available in varying forms in other Sega and Genesis/Mega Drive compilations in the past, but this is the first time they've been released together like this. Sonic the Hedgehog, which debuted in 1991 and saved the Sega Genesis upon launch, is experiencing a cultural resurgence right now with a recently released hit film and a sequel on the horizon as well. Chris, will you play this new Sonic Team 3D Sonic game?
Probably.
Oh, okay.
Probably. Because, and I gotta say, it's not necessarily with the best intentions. I like... Something about 3D Sonic games bother me so much to the point where I think it would be entertaining for me to play it. But I can't say that I'm like a Sonic fan. Like, I've never been a Sonic fan. We've been over this probably like a million times anytime Sonic comes up, but I never understood it. It was just too fast for me. Maybe I'm old.
No,
maybe I'm
too fast.
It was just too fast. I'm too slow.
You gotta go fast.
I got it, but I can't.
Yeah, I Sonic. Just as I have this internal permanent hatred of Sonic from my
permanent.
It's permanent. Just from growing up a Nintendo kid and just having such a loathing for the Genesis, like as a kid, until I ended up getting one. It's just burned into my brain. I used to be so mad, as I said on this show. I've been like, when people would be like, Sonic's better than Super Mario World. I'm like, are you fucking deficient? Like, are you crazy? No one with a straight face would say. So I've been holding it against them for a long time for no real reason. So I'd like to think that I'd play it as well. Dustin, what is your comfort level with Sonic 3D?
Well, here's I have a scientific thought here.
Yeah.
All Sonic fans are not furries, but all furries are Sonic fans.
Interesting.
Do you think? I feel like I'm onto something with this.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think you are objectively wrong and objectively right, I should say.
Good.
And I think this is empirically correct. I don't think anybody could argue against what you just said.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to think about here. I mean, I have a weird relationship with Sonic in that I grew up like Sonic is probably the first video game I maybe ever played. There's a picture of me sitting and playing Sonic, and I'm in a diaper. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, but it's...
This was a few years ago?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Dustin, a photo like that could get you impeached.
That's right. I mean, I'm just like any other Sonic fan. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
So, but yeah, so I have this thing where it's like, I see this collection and I remember playing those games when I was very young. And I just know that when I buy it, I'll play it and be like, this isn't very good. This is not. I know people like the speed of the old games and stuff, but I'm like, it's fun. You're flying around and then it's like you're instantly stopped. There's no, like, the platforming that just doesn't have that. It's not Mario in any way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, I know they're not trying to be Mario. I'm not saying every good platformer needs to be Mario, but it's like this weird thing where it's like you're going so fast, you're not even in control. You're just flying, and then you halt, and then you got to hop around a little bit, and then you're like speeding around again. It's just like it's always felt, now playing it as an adult, weird to go back to it.
Yeah, I always felt like the fact that, well, even just because those games were in 4x3, like pretty much every other game back then, you had even less screen real estate to even see what was coming up ahead of you. So you would be going this blindingly fast pace, and then you would hit a wall, and you'd be like, all right, well, there goes my momentum. The whole reason I'm having fun in the first place. All right, let me hop around. Oh, a little springboard. Spring, and then you're back into this fucking loop, and then you stop again. And it's like, is this like a memorization game? Is it literally just like you go through, you fail a bunch, and then you do the level again, knowing, so that way you can get the sensation of speed that the game promises you? Like, I don't know. Sonic as general game design philosophy, Sonic never worked for me. And maybe that's a problem with me, but I don't think it is. I think it's just, at the most, I think Sonic is just okay. And there's no way it's even close to Mario. No, as a remedial take.
No, that's I totally agree. I don't know. It always came off, even when I was a kid, as a gimmick. Where I'm like, oh, cool, speed, blast processing, and all this stuff. But whatever.
Someone's gonna be so mad.
I'm sure.
The show's so negative. Well, you know what? Maybe Sonic is the reason why we're here.
I know, maybe Sonic did this to me. Where did Sonic touch you? Number 5. As it does each month, the NPD Group released sales data for physical and digital software in the United States. This time for the month of April. MLB The Show 21 was the month's best-selling game in the US, and these numbers explicitly do not count Xbox Game Pass downloads or even Xbox digital sales of the game. So basically only counts PS4, PS5, and Xbox One. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War came in second, with Outriders at 4, Near Replicant at 5, Returnal at 8. So Near Replicant looks like it probably outsold Returnal, or sold pretty similarly considering when they came out. It Takes Two at 9 and Miles Morales at 12. When accounting for just PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games sold, these were the top 10 bestsellers for the month in order: MLB The Show 21, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Returnal, Outriders, Miles Morales, Near Replicant, Mortal Kombat 11, It Takes Two, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and Ghost of Tsushima. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is the year's best-selling game so far, with MLB The Show 21 at 3, Miles Morales at 5, and Outriders at 6. I guess we can just see there that that Returnal outsold Nier, so I'm totally wrong about that. And number 6, interested to see what you guys think of this. Please don't be mad at me, but it looks like Uncharted 4: A Thief's End is coming to PC. As pointed out by multiple sources, a recent investor presentation from Sony clearly shows that the company considers releasing its exclusives on PC a so-called quote-unquote growth vector, noting that Horizon Zero Dawn on PC saw an impressive 250% return, and in largely new geographic locations, including the all-important markets of China, India, and Russia, which Sony has varying levels of penetration in. In this presentation, it lists Days Gone as a PC release, along with Uncharted 4. Days Gone came to PC weeks ago and is picking up some steam there, pardon the pun. Uncharted 4 is likely to do as well as Horizon and Days Gone combined. Released back in 2016, A Thief's End is the last time we saw Nathan Drake and company, though persistent rumors percolate of another Uncharted game in the works. The same presentation notes that Sony is also looking to invest much more into its mobile games and experiences. Hunter Murphy wrote in and said, "Hey CDC, with news of Uncharted 4 coming to PC, I'm wondering if the door is now open for other Naughty Dog games to follow. Also, isn't it odd how they chose the last game in the series to be first on PC? Wouldn't it make much more sense to just throw the Blue Point trilogy on there first?" I agree. Dustin, what do you make of this? I mean, it doesn't mean anything per se, but this comes from Sony. This is the same presentation that had the fake God of War thing in it, so who knows? But I don't think they're just dragging Uncharted onto this, Uncharted logo clip art onto this and being like, yeah, we're going to bring Uncharted to PC. Clearly that's the plan. So what do you think about starting with 4?
Yeah, it is a bit odd if they only release 4 and not that the Blue Point trilogy, but my thought is, I mean, it still could be possible. This isn't an official announcement. Maybe at the official announcement they're going to say, boom, all 4 Uncharted games ready to go. Here they are, whatever. But it goes back to what we've been saying about milking the orange. They're just really
milking the orange, squeezing the orange. Yeah, milking the orange. Love the orange.
I think it makes so much sense. And anytime this topic comes up, I like how you put, please don't be mad at me. But it's like, people, this really riles up the fanboys about these games coming to a new platform. And you sound like a broken record here, but you want this to happen. If you love these franchises, you want this to happen because it makes more people interested and more people play them. And then when your next game comes out, they get more budget. And if you're really a console warrior, then it's going to bring people to PlayStation 5. So it really does support that line of thinking that we don't agree with, but just to put it out there. So yeah, I think it's great. I am so excited. I will, like, Uncharted 4, I played it. I think I've only played that one time when it came out, and I would love to play it again on 4K, whatever. The big question is, will they do an update to the PS5 version when this comes out?
Didn't Uncharted 4 get a 60 frames patch?
I don't think so.
No,
I
guess not. So yeah, that would be kind of shitty to do if they were gonna.
Well, they did it for Horizon. It never got a 60 FPS patch, and it runs way better. Unless, I mean, it's also who knows? We are still in the past, or we're not. The event hasn't happened yet. Maybe that's part of the event that has already happened for the listener. So maybe we're wrong.
So there is. I just Googled Uncharted 4 60 FPS. A recent unofficial patch allows Uncharted 4 to run at nearly 60 frames per second, but with the trade-off of lowering the game to 540p resolution.
Nice.
That is quite the trade-off. That is quite the trade-off. That is indeed quite the trade-off. Well, Chris, what do you think about Uncharted 4 coming to PC? Any further thoughts of expanding on what Dustin had to say?
I think I agree. I think it's cool. I think it's a good thing that these games are coming to different platforms. I don't know why. I guess just because PlayStation has the least history with doing this. I guess aside from, I guess Nintendo games outside of first party usually do kind of migrate off platform. But it's weird that the PlayStation community specifically seems to be really opposed to this. I don't really understand it. I guess Xbox has like a good 5-year at this point history of kind of just being like, whatever. But I'm always in favor of games, like, especially like after they've gotten as much as they can get out of the console, like just put it wherever the hell you can put it. I will say though, I agree with Hunter where I think it's weird that to reach backwards into your catalog and then pull out the 4th game in a trilogy of games that PC players don't have access to. I think that's confusing. I think that's a little weird. I wouldn't have done that. I would have been like, hey, here's the collection first, at the very least, because that's extra stranded.
Sure.
But I don't know. I'm not opposed to this. I think it makes sense. I just question the chronological nature of it. I just think it's a little weird. But
yeah, I agree.
I'm all for it.
It could be, as Dustin said, maybe they're intending on doing all 4, and like we said, it could just be that they're wrong that this game isn't coming, but I don't think that is the case.
Yeah.
Number 7, a throwaway comment and a financial call with investors could indicate that Roblox is en route to PlayStation platforms. As noted by website Games Radar, Roblox's CEO Dave Bazuski said the following, quote, Switch, PlayStation, Quest, all of these platforms make perfect sense for Roblox, end quote. And that's literally it. Yet, it's incredibly notable as up until this point, this increasingly popular platform is only available on Xbox, PC, and mobile platforms. That seems like it's about to change. Slowly gaining a loyal audience after launching in 2006, Roblox came to phones and tablets beginning in 2012 and jumped to Xbox One in 2015, where it has conspicuously stayed, likely due to barriers to development Sony has that Microsoft doesn't. The Roblox Corporation, which went public last year, employs more than 1,000 people around the world. I still don't really understand what this is. But I was surprised. I knew it was on Xbox One, but I didn't realize it was on Xbox One like 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what the hell is going on here? This thing is huge. I feel like this is an important piece of news. Chris, will you play it on PlayStation?
Definitely not. Like Roblox is something. It's weird though because like Roblox is so enormous, and nobody I know knows anything about it. Like I know I've met like kids in the families of friends of mine, and even in my family who do play it, like really little kids, like 11, 12, 13-year-olds, and yeah, they play Roblox, and I look at it and I'm like, this looks like a cacophony. This looks like a mess to me. But everybody, these kids are playing it, and it's a huge industry. Just this game makes a ton of money, and like, I don't know anything about it. You don't know anything about it. It's crazy how mysterious this game is for how big it apparently is. And I feel like part of me is like, I should play it just to be like informed on this massive thing in our industry. But at the same time, it looks so awful that I can't imagine ever voluntarily playing it. If there's anybody, by the way, and this goes back to I'm kind of repeating myself two episodes in a row here with the GTA 5 GTA Online thing too, but like, if there's anybody in this audience who plays Roblox, do your best to explain what the hell, you know? That's my challenge to you.
As I understand it, Dustin, tell me if I'm wrong here, because you might have a little bit more of an understanding of this. I don't know, but I always took that it was like some sort of dreams-like marketplace where people. It's like it's what we were talking about earlier, which is probably actually answering why it's not on PlayStation. It's like a meta gaming system, which is probably why Microsoft is much more comfortable with it on Xbox, where people go and play games on that platform. In other words, Roblox isn't like a game per se, but more like tools and engines, I think. And then it's like a unifying community where people go and play these things. I think that's what it is, but I don't. That's kind of what I've garnered, but I don't know for sure.
Right. So I'm in the Roblox shop right now, and I'm looking around, and I have a feeling that it is kind of like Dreams, and that people make their own games. I'm wondering, I swear I heard at one point that like players can make stuff and sell stuff on Roblox. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but yeah, dude, it's huge. I often see stuff when I'm either like in my Robinhood app or looking at other stock stuff that like people are really excited about Roblox stock. Like it's right now it's $97 on the stock market. It's gone up 8% in the last 5 days. And so at least I think it's 8%. Maybe I'm not reading this right. But either way, I mean, they're clearly positioned, and there's a lot of faith in this company to continue growing. I don't know anything about it other than my little cousins that are, 8 years old play it and love it. But I don't know anything about it.
Interstitial piece of news here I got to throw in, boys. Dying Light 2.
Yep.
From Techland. December 7th is the release date. December 7th,
Pearl Harbor
2021, Day. PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Wow, that's kind of big to come out of nowhere.
Yeah, they had some sort of live stream, and people, I think, were expecting just to be kind of like a checkup, but nothing more.
That's okay. That's great news. I assume we're going to see some. So they had a live stream of like, did they show any of the game?
Yeah, there's apparently a new trailer. I'm looking at it now.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
exciting.
Yeah, there's gameplay.
That's huge.
Yeah, so people can go check that out. But yeah, that just happened right now. So I just wanted to make sure that we got that into this episode. So again, that's Dying Light 2, December 7th, 2021, the sequel to the awesome 2014 Techland made game that I was obsessed with. Or was it 2015? I think it was 2014. Let me look. Dying Light Wiki. It's going to bother me. Nope, 2015. Okay. Number 8. It shouldn't come as a huge surprise, but if Obsidian's 2019 open world RPG, The Outer Worlds, gets a sequel, it's going to be published by Microsoft. Word comes by way of website Gamasutra, which provided clarification as part of some recent confusion during a financial call held by publisher Take-Two Interactive. As we reported a couple of weeks ago, The Outer Worlds has been a mild sales success. It surpassed 3 million copies sold across all platforms. But while talking about those sales, the publisher's president, Karl Sladoff, noted the following, quote, "Obviously, we're incredibly pleased with Outer Worlds and everything that it's brought. I can't say it was a complete surprise out of the gate, but it was certainly something pleasant for us and a little bit unexpected. We will be participating in the franchise and whatever the future holds for that franchise, so we feel really good about it." And then an ellipsis. "We do think it's a long-term franchise, and it is certainly something that we're pleased with the results," end quote. It's clear, however, that Sladoff didn't think things through about what he was saying. The game's developer, Obsidian, was purchased by Microsoft during the development of Outer Worlds and is now an Xbox studio. However, it fulfilled its obligations, including DLC, on behalf of Private Division, which is a Take-Two owned imprint. Thus, it came as no surprise when Take-Two clarified, saying in part, quote, "Moving forward, Obsidian and Microsoft will be publishing future iterations in the franchise, and we're absolutely thrilled to see where they take it," end quote. Obsidian, best known for its work on 2004's KOTOR 2, 2010's Fallout New Vegas, 2014's South Park The Stick of Truth, and 2015's Pillars of Eternity, is currently toiling away on Xbox exclusive RPG Avowed. Chris, what do you think about this? I'm wondering if this fits into the Phil Spencer, like, we're not looking to take any games away from people mantra that he was talking about, like things that existed on other platforms. And we were trying to examine whether that means like Minecraft, of course, or whether that means like the Elder Scrolls. And I wonder if the Outer Worlds is one of those games as well. I don't know if people would feel like anything's being taken away from, but it's clear that they're continuing the series with a sequel.
Yeah.
And it might not come to PlayStation. So what do you think?
I think it makes sense. I think when Phil Spencer says we're not going to take games away from people, I think what he means is games that currently are on other platforms, they're not going to just kill on other platforms for no reason, or they're not
like
going
the Elder
to
Scrolls Online or something.
Yeah, like ESO, but I mean, it should be expected. Microsoft bought these studios. They're obviously going to make exclusive games going forward. That just seems to make sense. That would be the expectation for literally anybody else. And I'll say, I've said this before, but I just feel like because Microsoft is the most amenable to putting their games on other platforms, I feel like people just kind of projected a sense of hope that they might be like, hey, yeah, they did this thing that they bought a studio, but they're also Microsoft, so maybe they'll put stuff on other platforms anyway. And it's like, I think I thought that was possible too, but I'm not surprised that this is the way things are going. I personally, I wouldn't expect Starfield. I wouldn't expect whatever this next Elder Scrolls is. I wouldn't expect, even
Fallout.
even Doom or Fallout. Like, sincerely, like Fallout 76. I think if they're still updating it,
right,
will continue to persist.
But not Fallout 5 or whatever.
Yeah,
now that they have Black Isle, Obsidian, and Bethesda Game Studios, which are all the Fallout studios, right? So
yeah, it's crazy, but I'm not surprised by it. I think ultimately, like, I'm not a fan of any time this happens when games are taken, or franchises that have a history elsewhere are just like kind of arbitrarily locked just because a studio acquisition happened. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but I'm not surprised. And in my opinion, if Sony can take Final Fantasy, the biggest thing, which they do have a history with, in fairness, but has since moved on to several other platforms since then. I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake is that on Xbox yet?
No.
No.
Not
Well,
yet.
I think that's insane. But, I don't know. I just think it's fine. I'm not the biggest fan of shit when this happens, of this shit when it happens, but they bought it. So.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually, before the clarification, when this story first emerged, Dustin, my first take was, really? It actually was like, I was like, Obsidian's going to continue to work with Take-Two? And so the clarification, I think, was necessary. Mm-hmm. I think Chris is right. Why would you do that? Although there's an interesting, hypothetical fantasy swap here where Sony says, listen, like, we'll put Sunset Overdrive 2 made by Insomniac on Xbox. You put the Outer Worlds 2 made by Obsidian on PlayStation. And that kind of stuff doesn't happen, but that would be like a fun fantasy thing.
That's a fun hypothetical, but there's no way in hell Sony would ever do that.
No, I agree. I also think that it doesn't really that benefits Microsoft a lot more too, because I don't think the Outer Worlds is that big. I mean, I was actually kind of surprised. I'm happy that they're pleased with 3 million sold, but I was like, that's really soft. That's an Obsidian game. That's a big studio and a very well respected studio. I bought that game day one. I'm a little disappointed that people didn't come out and show their love for that game. I don't know if it had anything to do with them becoming an Xbox studio during that time, and so people are like, well, we're kind of losing them anyway. But I'm just a little surprised that the Outer Worlds didn't get more love. That struck me as like a 10 million seller, and it sold a third of that basically. So.
The Outer Worlds to me kind of reeked of cult classic. Like even when I was playing it when it was new and we didn't have any sales numbers, I was like, oh, this isn't Call of Duty. Like this isn't going to like grab millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of people. But I think it's a good game to own. And it's a good series to own. I think people in the future are going to look back on Outer Worlds and we're already doing it where it's like, why didn't that sell more? It's crazy. It's such a good game.
Also, I'm sorry, Dustin. Well, go ahead, please.
No, I just have a question that I think, Colin, maybe you can answer. So if Take-Two / Private Division publish the game, don't they own the rights for?
They might own the rights to the original game, but they don't, because they did say in the statement that they're going to publish the game on Switch, but they don't own the IP. Clearly, I don't know if it was ever clear. It's clear now that Obsidian owns that IP.
Interesting.
But it's very similar to how Insomniac. It's actually identical. Insomniac owns Sunset Overdrive. They just can't publish the first game.
Okay.
So
yeah.
So when Sony bought Insomniac, they got Sunset Overdrive, but they just don't have the first game.
Right.
So it's a little bit complicated, and it was kind of a little bit weird why Microsoft made that deal anyway, or why actually Insomniac made that deal. And it's like, yeah, you own the IP, but who cares? Like, the first game is always going to be owned, or at least in some sort of perpetuity owned by these other guys. So we'll keep an eye out for all of this as well. But congratulations to Obsidian on decent sales, and also boo to Carl Slatoff, the president of Take-Two. You don't know what you're talking about, dude. Pretty clear. Leave it to Strauss Zelnick and the other guys there that, the big boys. Get off the call.
Yeah.
Number 9. About a month ago on this show, we discussed the seldom known issue surrounding the Little Big Planet community, which is quietly dealing with a rather major problem. The entire series' online functionality is basically non-functioning and hasn't been in some time, making the game's entire long-term allure, creating and sharing levels, unworkable. As tweeted out by the official Little Big Planet Twitter account on May 22nd, quote, "Due to the severity of the recent attacks, we have no other option than to temporarily disable the game servers. We do not take these attacks lightly, especially when they target our loyal community members. Thanks for understanding," end quote. As reported by website Kotaku, the attacks noted in the tweet were transphobic in nature, although they weren't clear about what that was, with, quote, "hackers gaining access to the game's community features," end quote, to post these attacks. It's unclear when the game will be stably brought back online, as it's been unstable for several months. 2008's original Little Big Planet, 2011's Little Big Planet 2, and 2014's Little Big Planet 3, all on PS3, LBB3 is, of course, on PS4, as well as the PSP and Vita iterations of the game are all interconnected, allowing players to share and play various stages, keeping the small community alive. It's unclear what Sony-owned developer Media Molecule is doing to alleviate these problems, though it's worth noting that the most recent Little Big Planet games, the aforementioned LBP3 and Sackboy: A Big Adventure, launched on PS4 and PS5 last year, weren't even made by Media Molecule. Sumo Digital made both games in a second-party capacity. Not much more to say about this. I won't even throw it to you guys, but just something that's persisting in the Little Big Planet community, and I guess is being aggressively dealt with, but too bad for the Little Big Planet players out there.
Yeah. Number
10, there are a few pieces of industry news worth noting. The most important of the bunch is no doubt word that Chinese mega company Tencent now owns 3.8% of developer Remedy Entertainment. However, this was a private sale, as noted by website GamesIndustry.biz. Quote, "Remedy was informed of the sale after it had taken place," end quote, between the venture capital firm that sold the shares and Tencent. That firm still owns 14% of Remedy after the sale. Remedy, best known for its Max Payne and Alan Wake games, most recently launched Control in 2019. It's currently working on up to a half dozen projects. Meanwhile, Square Enix-owned studio Crystal Dynamics has launched a new satellite office in Austin, Texas, its second satellite with its first in Washington state. The studio itself is in California and is, of course, best known these days for its Tomb Raider games as well as the recent Adventures game. And finally, the ever rapidly expanding Embracer Group has apparently spoken with some 150 developers about being acquired during their last quarter of operations, with 20 of those studios in so-called late-stage talks to come aboard, and some having already privately agreed. Embracer currently owns more than 60 studios and has more than 150 games in development, according to gamesindustry.biz. Dustin, what do you think? I confirmed on Twitter, Lily Mo Games, the studio I co-own, is not one of those teams, although we are very much for sale, Embracer. So come talk to us if you like to throw us exorbitant amounts of money.
Yeah. Man. I mean, 150 studios. That's
no, 150 games, 60
150 games, 150 developers. Yeah. 60 studios though. It's like
it's an unwieldy group. It's like 8 or 9 different groups.
Yeah.
Like I think Saber Interactive is its own group. THQ Nordic is its own group. Deep Silver is its own group. Like Deep Silver, I think owns Warhorse. It's quite complicated, but I don't understand. We were talking about how I don't think Microsoft's challenge will be to manage and produce games from 30 teams. I would imagine that they have much more management talent than Embracer Group. Yeah. So managing twice that many teams is really unbelievable. That they're looking to expand even more is something else. But Chris, I wanted to ask you, because I know you're a Remedy fan. I'm not thrilled about this 3.8% going to Tencent in a private sale that Remedy wasn't even aware of. Now, they don't have any right necessarily to know, but I want to continue to raise the alarm about this very pernicious Chinese CCP connected company having its fucking dirty tendrils in all sorts of gaming companies. Some 100% like they own Riot, some with just a few points like they own now Remedy. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't like it. I love Remedy. I love their games. So, and even just lately, just the conversation has just been really just awkward online. Like you had the, I don't know if you guys saw that clip of John Cena apologizing in Chinese about calling Taiwan a country.
Brutal.
It was like mega embarrassing. Like I couldn't believe it when I was seeing it. And it was like, I mean, props, he speaks it super well, but it's getting increasingly creepy, the amount of capitulating to China that we've been doing. Not even just, and I don't mean to get super, I mean, obviously it's kind of hard to do this without getting political, but like the amount of capitulation we are doing to China on a just countrywide level, it feels like, is really like embarrassing and really concerning. And the more money that goes into like these studios, I mean, we saw it with the Call of Duty trailer that launched with the Tiananmen Square footage that then got pulled down because of Tencent connections. It's like it's just creepy, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't either. It's it is political, but we don't in the United States recognize Taiwan for political reasons, but it's clear that Taiwan is its own country. You should be allowed to say that and not have to apologize in Mandarin to potential audiences, just like they tried to whitewash, quite literally, I guess, John Boyega out of the Star Wars posters, and just like they removed the Taiwanese flag from Tom Cruise's bomber jacket in Top Gun. And by the way, I mean, I was thinking about this recently. MGM, the movie studio, Amazon just bought them for an exorbitant amount of money, like $9 billion. They own Red Dawn, which is, of course, one of my favorite movies from the 80s. But you guys might recall that this started happening. Red Dawn was remade like in 2009 or 2010 and was delayed because there was financial problems at MGM. And when it came back like a year later, all of the Chinese flags were replaced with North Korean flags in the movie. And then they released it. So the Chinese couldn't even be the bad guys in the movie. In other words, they literally made them into Koreans, which seemed racist to me because I'm like, they're not literally Korean. They're actually, I think, Chinese people. But so I don't want anything to do with that totalitarian shit show over there. And it sucks that they have their fucking tendrils, like I said, in so many things. Like we were making fun of that website GameBite last week, which is owned by them. It's like, get the fuck out of here. You know, and I'm so glad that Riot has no relevance at all in our ecosystem, you know, because they're the biggest company. And unfortunately, so too are Chinese corporate tendrils in your beloved Bungie. So,
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, and I will say, like, this is where the cracks in capitalism begin to show, because like you have a situation where when you have an economic system that is literally just based on getting as much money as fast as possible, then principle just kind of goes out the window, and the second a superpower has enough money to essentially buy principle, then what do you really have at that point? It's uncomfortable.
Very poignant.
I don't like it.
Very poignant. Number 11, Sony's fledgling streaming service PlayStation Now is quietly humming along and doing decent numbers. Website Push Square reports news from a recent Sony investor presentation, which notes PS Now totes 3.2 million subscribers as of a month or so ago. That's about 15 times fewer subscribers than PlayStation Plus commands and about 7 times fewer subscribers than its rival offering from Microsoft, Xbox Game Pass. And it could be that Microsoft is going to silently increase the heat on PlayStation. Arcane, the developer behind Dishonored and Prey, is now owned by Microsoft as part of the Bethesda deal, and Dishonored 2, its well-regarded 2016 game, is exiting Now's roster imminently and will be gone by the time you hear this podcast. So just a little note on PS Now. And then number 12 is a wrap-up. Website Gamatsu reports official Olympics game Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 comes to PS4 on June 22nd. Third-person shooter Foreclosed comes to PS4 and PS5 on August 12th. Beat-em-up Mayhem Brawler comes to PS4 on August 18th. Licensed platformer The Smurfs Mission Villeaf comes to PS4 on October 25th. Platformer Marsupilami Hoopa Venture, I don't know, comes to PS4 on November 16th. And JRPG Metal Max Xeno, Reborn comes to PS4 in 2022. Website Push Square reports co-op game Kiwi comes to PS4 and PS5 on August 31st. A new Fast and Furious game called Fast and Furious Spy Racers Rise of Shifter comes to PS4 and PS5 in November. Deck building game Roguebook comes to PS4 at some point later in 2021. And website IGN reports action platformer Berserk Boy comes to PS4 and PS5 in late 2022. And horror game Daymare 1994 comes to PS4 and PS5 at an unknown point, in 2022. The website also reports that it appears the official social media feeds for the Crysis series are rather obviously teasing a Crysis 2 remaster, Crysis 2 having first come to PS3 back in 2011. Publisher Capcom has announced its recently released Resident Evil game Village has surpassed 4 million copies sold. And finally, publisher Gearbox Software revealed that Borderlands 3 is ready for full cross-platform play, but that it won't be yet coming to PlayStation platforms for unknown Sony side reasons, probably having to do with money. So that's all of the news, my men. And now, ladies and gentlemen out there, as always, tradition dictates we end every episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience, as submitted on Patreon. Let's start with Christian Colta, who wrote into us and said, "Hey, Colin, you recently described yourself as being against censorship, but I don't think you can say that until you defend someone you disagree with from being censored. Well, that opportunity came and went with the IGN staff, and not only did you not speak against them being censored, but your Twitter posts, while not exactly clear, did give off a vibe of actually gloating a bit about them being censored. So does censorship actually bother you?" It's an interesting question, and a continuation of our conversation last week. God, the sun keeps coming in and out. By the way, I talked to the blinds guy today, and hopefully he's coming next week to install these darker blinds, because I have these nice blinds, but obviously they don't do the trick. So, Dustin, let me send it over to you. I mean, let me just shove it right over to you. Is what happened, like when we were talking about IGN and their Israeli and Palestinian post was taken down, do you think that it constitutes censorship? And am I a hypocrite for not supporting this?
Well, I think that there's definitely something to be said about the fact of your freedom of speech relating to your workplace. Like, for example, if I came into every episode and introduced myself and said Biden 2020, Trump 2020, whatever, and made like a political stance at the beginning of every episode, you might not like that and not want me to do that and say, hey, this is this is the show that I own, that I'm paying you to be a part of, and I don't want you to do that because I don't want to make that kind of political statement on the show. I could still go to my personal Twitter account and post whatever candidate I want, and that's not being censored. So I don't expect full freedom of speech at the place I work in that type of context. So that's my initial thought in relation to this. But I don't know. Do you think that's a correct line of thinking about this?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Yeah, I think it's totally fair. Chris, what do you think? Am I a hypocrite for not standing in defense of IGN?
I don't know. I think there is something to be said about editorial autonomy when we're talking about sites that report news. And granted, like, IGN is a video game entertainment website primarily, but they are also a pretty massive source of, information. And I think there is something to be said that, like, because nothing that IGN said was really wrong. They were just sort of like, hey, here's where you can help people who might need help, It wasn't, I don't think there was any, like, factual inaccuracies about anything that they posted. So that, to me, is the weird thing. When a company is being like, hey, this is news, we're going to talk about it because we're an editorial company. We're not going to share false information. We're not going to lie. We're just going to say, hey, here's a humanitarian thing. Go ahead and try. If you want, here's a way to signal boost this thing. And then a staff that is above them, that is completely anonymous, goes and kind of just takes that down against their will and then puts words in their mouth and then slinks back into the shadows. I do think there is a hint of censorship there. I do think you could make that argument. I do also understand the argument, though, of, yeah, if you own a thing and you don't approve of something being said on the thing, you're within your rights to shut it down. I think it's a complicated thing because we're talking about editorial companies versus, like, what we do, which is, like, just media in general. But I'm not educated on any of those fronts enough to really, like, hammer down on any one of these points because I really don't know. It's an interesting conversation, though.
Yeah, I was thinking about Christian's letter because I understand the point in some way that he's trying to make, but I don't. It strikes me ultimately as kind of one of those more gotcha type things where to make a point, you ignore all context about what's happening. When I argue against censorship of a video game, not a video game that exists, but a video game from being even made at all or being published at all, what I'm personally rallying against are people that are supposed to love and cover video games rallying to the cause of getting a game unmade or unreleased. And that's what's happening. And I do rally to that cause. And ironically, a lot of the people that, you're right, like, are censored in quotes on IGN are the people that are rallying for other people's censorship. It's why I've said, and I think I said it on Twitter, or someone said it to me, I don't know if I said it on the show. It's like, I'm never gonna participate in a person's cancellation ever. You've never seen me do it. I'm never gonna do it. But I'm not, like, crying for people anymore at all. Like, people eventually just reap what they sow. I tried for years to try to tell people to see things more fairly, and I think that I am a fair arbiter most of the time of things. And so this strikes me as, like, totally outside IGN's purview, and therefore I don't see that this is a censorship issue at all. First of all, it's not literally censorship because it has nothing to do with the First Amendment. It's not. I get that, but
yeah,
but
you know,
yeah, I know.
You know what people mean.
No, of course. My next thing I was going to say is I don't really particularly like making that argument because I do know what people mean, but if Christian taking what you say to the utmost degree, what you're basically saying is that IGN should be allowed to post anything they want on the site, and that any managerial insistence on taking something that would be, like, off topic, offensive, etc. off the site would be censorship that I should be rallying against. And I just don't take that position. I've never taken that position. So the IGN staff is free to feel how they want and free to say what they say, but I don't really see this quite the way you do. And I'm not gloating about them getting censored. I think what happened to them, first of all, you have to understand, I know a lot of people at IGN. To think that I am not talking to people about this is ridiculous. I've talked to a lot of people about what's going on there. I know people all across the site. The reality is that most of the people that work at the site didn't sign the letter. Some people were not even asked to sign the letter. It caused incredible acrimony in the newsroom and across the website, manufactured an entirely huge problem for a corporate company to deal with. And all because and again, from what I understand, a small group of writers who other people are scared to talk against there. It's so funny. Like, I think about that. I'm like, who are these fucking people? Who cares? I would say whatever I want if I was there. But it's just, there's much more to it. And it's clear to me that since none of the demands that were in the public letter from editorial were met in the time frame in which they were supposed to be met, means that they have no power. And it's as I said to Richard Hogue, our friend on Twitter, where I said, you don't flex unless you're willing to back it up. And they flexed and they can't back it up. Because the next thing you do is wildcat strike or something, you know? Then you like go off the fucking reservation a little bit. But you stop working or you start publishing like things against your company. I mean, that's what happened at remember when Deadspin fell apart, the sports website, that's exactly what happened. They started posting things that were totally against their own company and all that. So anyway, Christian, I wanted to give you your airing, but I do think that I have successfully repelled your attack. Thank you. The Assassin AK-47 writes in and says, hello, CDC, just piggybacking off of the GTA talk last weekend, earlier today, of course. Where would you like GTA 6 to be located? Most people are speculating about Vice City, but I don't want it to be in the States at all. I would love for Rockstar to set GTA 6 in London or Paris. Where would you guys like GTA 6 to be set? Yeah, I agree. I don't want it in the United States. That's my hope as well. I think we've done Vice City is awesome, and it would be cool to see it again, but I don't want London or Paris either. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I think it would be fun to have something like totally off the beaten path, like Moscow, or because like imagine the comedy you can have in Russia, like kind of lampooning the society, but also getting kind of serious about it and its people and its history and all of that. So when I read this letter and put it into our document today, guys, I was like, Moscow came to mind for me. I would like a game in Moscow. I would imagine the dynamic weather and stuff like that too, with the snow. And Dustin, where would you like to see Grand Theft Auto 6 set?
See, for me, I feel like Grand Theft Auto is like quintessentially American in the way they parody our culture, our a very American way of life. And so I feel like it wouldn't make sense to really be anywhere but here. So for me, I think Vice City would be cool, but I'm always about new cities. And so I know that Watch Dogs did San Francisco, but I would love to see like the GTA take on the
Bay
tech
Area
world, right? Like seeing how they would make fun of the startup culture or whatever. Other than that, though, man, part of me thinks it would be cool to go back and do Liberty City as well, just to see that like their version of New York City, only in a next gen, whatever the current technology would be cool. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of options, but I definitely would want to keep it in the U.S.
What do you think, Chris?
I'm going to be kind of predictable. I want New York, man. I love that city. I love it in every video game that I've ever played it in. And I think Grand Theft Auto, the issue, like Liberty City in Grand Theft Auto 4 felt like, oh man, they're just not there yet with tech. Like it felt like it bothered me that the jump between Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5 from a single player perspective is so massive, and just the sheer amount of just the scale and the detail and just the character in the city. Like Liberty City feels kind of dead all the time, and it's like, how? It's New York City. It should not feel that desolate. And I know it's for the times, and I understand it, but part of me is always like, damn, I wish they had done California in 2008 and did New York in 2013 when they put it out, because I think that's just a really fun city to explore, especially from a GTA perspective. It's just, I just have fun in New York all the time. My second choice though would be like Seattle or something.
That'd be
I think
cool.
that could be fun.
Seattle's
Yeah, because you can have you can do the tech angle there as well without it feeling too similar to, you know, the San Andreas or LA or, you know, without it feeling too similar of a biome. I think you could do Seattle and get like the Pacific Northwest and still get that tech in there, get like game dev stuff. You know, Canada is like right there. There's like a whole lot of opportunity you have for like narrative and even just gameplay moments that I think could be like really fun.
Indeed.
But yeah,
very well said. Just to protect you, by the way, Dustin, there is a GTA game in Europe.
There is.
Yeah, GTA London.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Which was one that took place in the 60s, right? It was like when it was still the top-down games, but there was one. It was on PS1, I think.
Okay.
So I'm just protecting my poor boy here.
Thank you. I'm ready to be slaughtered by the comments at a moment's notice.
No, I know. I like to protect my baby boys.
Thank you.
Austin Prentice wrote in and said, "Hello, CDC. With the imminent arrival of Rift Apart, continuing the Ratchet and Clank franchise, what do each of you think is Sony's most important IP over the course of their entire history?" The easy answer recently would be The Last of Us, but would Sony be where it is today without the mascot platformers of the PS1, PS2, or console exclusivity deals of the past with Final Fantasy or Metal Gear? Eager to hear your thoughts and keep cranking out the fantastic podcast. We'll keep cranking out something. Chris,
his name is A. Prentice.
Oh,
is that your real name? That's astonishing. If that's your real name,
that's awesome. But I wouldn't even made that connection. Very well done.
It bothered me instantaneously. I'm sorry to interrupt. What were you gonna ask me?
I was gonna ask you what Austin A. Prentice asked, which was, if you could select one IP that's on PlayStation. So I guess, and he's saying Metal Gear is in there, Final Fantasy, so it doesn't have to be first party. What would be the most important IP that has ever been on PlayStation? I guess most consequential to its success. You know, I mean, like the biggest games, obviously we can just go to look at sales, but
yeah, I personally, I would say the early PS1 mascot platformers had a huge impact. I think Spyro and Crash Bandicoot were like insurmountably important, especially during that time when Nintendo was seen as having, you know, a lot of dominance in that space, when they had Rare in their back pocket. They had Banjo-Kazooie, they had 64, they had, you know, all of the Donkey Kongs. They had all of these crazy, like, beloved platformers. And then here's PlayStation out of the gate, you know, and they like, hey, we got Crash Bandicoot. Hey, we got, you know, Spyro the Dragon. And they're both super beloved and super classic games, like immediately. I think that went a long way in proving PlayStation's viability. Because if those games had launched and they weren't anywhere near up to the quality of Nintendo, that would have been probably pretty disastrous. But obviously I say that as somebody who has a bias, because those were the games that I played. I'm sure Final Fantasy VII was enormously important, and I think probably objectively speaking, if I'm trying to remove myself entirely from the situation, I think Final Fantasy is probably the thing that
7,
really
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So yeah, they're all there now, or soon will be.
Yeah.
Dustin, what's your answer?
I have to say, I know he's asking for a specific one, but I think it's important to point out, I think that's something about the PlayStation brand that makes it so strong, is that it's, when you say Xbox, it's like instantly Halo. Like
Sure.
that's the brand. But PlayStation, what makes their brand so strong is their lack of a one strong one. There's so many that we can have a conversation like this. And I've always seen that as a strength. But for me, I'm going to say, for me, it was always Metal Gear, man. Like, I remember, I think when Metal Gear Solid 2 first came out, I don't know if I had a PlayStation 2. And it was the reason I wanted a PS2. When Metal Gear Solid 4 came out, I didn't have a PS3 yet. And so that was the reason I wanted a PS3. And I remember those games. Even Metal Gear Solid 2, that was like a big event for that. Because I remember there were people that beat it. They beat it in like a day and a half, and it was like a news story that people were upset by how short it was or something, which looking back, I don't think that it was really that different in length to the first one, but
no, it wasn't.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
I'm gonna have to say Metal Gear.
The original
Maybe
Metal
that's
Gear is
personal,
shorter.
but
yeah, Metal Gear is an interesting answer. Yeah, I like that answer. I'm gonna try to answer this more objectively if I can. The three franchises came to mind. The first was Gran Turismo. I don't know if any series has sold more that Sony has. I think it's still the best-selling series. So certainly with Gran Turismo 7 on the horizon, we will have more Gran Turismo. The worst-selling Gran Turismo mainline game sold like 8 million copies. So I mean, it just goes to show you, right, how. And I think the biggest one was like 16 or 17. I think A-Spec on PS2 sold the highest, or maybe it was 5 as well on PS3. So Gran Turismo came to mind, and then God of War came to mind. So 1, 2, 3, Ascension, the PSP games plus the reboot, and then we have Ragnarok. Seems to be a pretty substantial through line, especially during the late PS2 era all the way on. I mean, a lot of people still consider God of War some of the best games on PlayStation. And then, of course, number 3, I would have to say Uncharted. But that's even later than God of War. So I actually think Gran Turismo is the one that might cover the most distance, pardon the pun, of import. I mean, going all the way back to the original game in 97, 98. And so, yeah, those are my answers.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say PlayStation definitely wouldn't be PlayStation without Pepsi Man.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
That's the one. I think I want to amend my previous thoughtful answer with that one.
Thank you. Thank you, Austin, for writing in. Max Gale wrote in and said, hey, DCC, what do you feel will be the next big push for gaming in terms of peripheral? VR and audio are getting that big push now, and while both are very nice and big things to have, I personally want to see more done with dynamic room lighting, where the lights react to what's on the screen, similar to the Philips Hue Play, where it looks at the colors on screen and adapts the lighting connected to it to show it off all around the room. This is probably 10 or so years away. I don't think so. I think it's not that far away before it becomes anything like Dolby Atmos for lighting and ambience, but it's something I'd love to see personally. What do you all feel is the possible next step for pushing the peripheral side of gaming? I actually really like this answer, Max. Chris, I'm curious what you think might be the next push. I know you're a really big fan of ambient light generally. You often talk about how you try to find and identify the light pattern or whatever that goes with the game you're playing, so like Doom or whatever. So
yeah.
How do you feel about Max's contention that there can be some sort of dynamic like lighting in your room?
I haven't done that in a while, in fairness. Just only because like I only have so many Ethernets, and you need like an Ethernet for the Philips Hue, and I'm like, all right, I'll sacrifice my lighting for better connection in the living room. But I like that kind of dynamic room lighting. I think it's cool. That said, as a peripheral, like the next big peripheral that isn't VR or 3D audio, and I don't even know if I would really consider like audio really all that peripheral. It's just part of, you know what I mean? It's just part of what you're doing anyway. But I'm just not really a peripheral person. Like I'm not super into like, oh, here's the new PlayStation Eye, and it motion captures your face when you're playing Grand Theft Auto, so you can look like you're really shouting slurs at people. And it's like, I don't know if I care that much. Like I'm really happy with a square screen in front of me, a rectangular screen in front of me, a normal controller, and headphones or decent speakers. Like I am not in search of this next, like, I need to really heighten this experience for me. I think it's perfectly fine. And I think there's a lot of innovations that have been made both with motion controls and like, you know, Connect and all this stuff where it's like, I think we constantly prove time and time again that like a controller and a screen is just where it's at. Unless you're doing VR, which is entirely predicated around it. I don't know if I really care about peripherals in the same way that I used to when I was a kid, when it was just kind of exciting to get a new piece of plastic that did a thing. You know, I think I'm over that. What do you think, Dustin?
Well, Chris, I think a lot of people are over that from specifically like the 2010s era of Rock Band and Guitar Hero and all kinds of plastic that you would buy. And I mean, I was part of that. I mean, I love Rock Band to this day, but it seems like as far as peripherals, unless it's completely transformative like VR, people aren't necessarily interested in new ways of playing, but making the way you currently play better. So, there's a huge push right now, like headsets, I mean, are huge, not just for multiplayer, but getting high quality. You see both Sony and Microsoft stepping in with high quality headset options. People now, I think, maybe it's just who I hang out with or who I talk to, but I think people are more interested in the quality of their TVs. Like you see this big push about OLED TVs are like the big thing that people are like, you got to play this on OLED and you got to have or Dolby Atmos. So I think that the peripheral experience is more focused around making the current experience better, whether that's audio, visual, headsets, whatever.
And I'm going to say something that might be controversial. I don't know how controversial this is. I don't like high dynamic range. I don't get it. Like, I don't care. I really don't give a shit. Like, every time I remember I booted up Destiny on my TV and it was so hard to see a goddamn thing because there are these deep blacks that erase all detail and then these like really vibrant shine, and it's like my monitor doesn't have high dynamic range and it looks perfect to me. I don't need it. I don't understand what high dynamic range is. I don't know how it really improves a game. Like resolution and frame rate, that I get. That's pretty crystal clear. But I don't really see what the hell the big deal is with this.
Dustin, you seem like you have something you really want to say.
I'm in physical pain right now. I'm hurting.
What is it?
Well,
what is it? What does it do for you? Like, I sincerely, like, I've turned it off in certain places.
Here, okay. First of all, to be fair to you, not all HDR is created equal in games.
Right.
Specifically, Destiny has some pretty fucky HDR.
Awful.
Like, real bad. To the point where people have talked about, like, yeah, in order to tune the HDR right, you have to turn off the HDR and then mess with your brightness settings and then turn it back on. Bungie, get your shit together with HDR. Maybe they fixed it since I recently, but dude, something's wrong with Destiny 2 HDR. But the question, Chris, though, is that, I mean, in other instances, there are a time in your room and the setting is important with HDR. Like, HDR is really meant to be used in the absolute darkest room possible. So that's a big factor where it's like,
right.
For example, I like when I use the HDR on Resident Evil 8, I'm very impressed by it, but it is not helpful when there's a lot of light in the room, and I do have to go change it around. So HDR is not quite as one size fits all as like just turning on a game and whatever.
That is a fair point.
Yeah.
Not everything is implemented in the same way. I get that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've maybe I've played games that have high dynamic range that's really good and I just don't notice it because I'm not thinking about how obtrusive it is because it's done well. That's also possible. But I will say, like, I don't know, like I stream a lot. So my room is never going to be dark because I need lighting. So like it's just I'm at a weird point where like I don't know. Here's what I will say. Companies got to get better at implementing this shit because as it stands right now, I turn it off a lot. Like I don't need it. But, yeah.
I'm not going to get involved in these tech conversations, so I'm glad you guys did. But I did want to say, from my excitement here to answer Mac's question would just real quick be, I'm really intrigued by PSVR 2 and specifically those orb controllers. I feel like by combining motion with haptics in a more conceivable single cord, simple setup with the VR unit, I feel like there's a lot of potential with VR in terms of real atmospheric stuff. Apparently there's going to be haptics in the headset itself. It's going to be exciting. So I really think I'm really such a believer in haptic stuff after just playing, especially Returnal. It's such a joy on the DualSense. So I'm kind of just more in that mode of show me more of what this can do because I'm really quite smitten with this controller. But I'm very intrigued by what they're going to do with those PSVR 2 controllers too.
Absolutely.
John Stage Skull wrote into us and said, "Greetings, first time write-in. Welcome. 6 months after the launch of the PS5, we are not only seeing persistent scalping, but also major retailers selling consoles and bundles at prices higher than MSRP. Why is Sony letting others make additional profit from their consoles as opposed to implementing a dynamic pricing system that reflects market demand? Thank you for your consideration." Well, first of all, John, nothing really works like that. I mean, things do work like that. I mean, like if you like watch things at a macro level, Walmart will change the Tide detergent 10 cents 1 week because of some cost structure thing. But generally speaking, an MSRP is that it is a suggested retail price. Of course, that is what the S means. But it's not a great look to have a more dynamic pricing scale that will just benefit. See, that doesn't affect supply and demand. That simply drives all of the demand towards the people with the most money. And I don't know, so in other words, if like the market, it's like buying oil, right? Like, or gas. If you just woke up one day and it's like today's price of PS5, $675. That's the price of the dynamic pricing. And it's like, well, that doesn't benefit anyone who could have gotten it at 500. So I understand what you're saying, John, but I did want to know that dynamic pricing, it's not oil. It's not a commodity. It's not wheat or something like that, where you would do that. Scalping is a problem, but this is the thing that's bothering me a lot, guys. People are saying like, well, who knows how many consoles are really sold with scalpers buying? And then I'm like, yeah, this is what scalpers do. Scalpers buy consoles or buy products and then just hold them until the price drops and then they sell them. They don't buy them at the high and sell high. That's not what scalpers do. Scalpers only with PlayStation 5s apparently buy them high, or buy them at normal MSRP rather, and then let the price fall, and then they sell them. Doesn't make any sense. So that's just an aside. I'm yelling at you, John. You didn't say anything. You didn't do anything to me, John. So don't worry about that. But I did want to say that I don't like this particular setup. We do have a supply problem, but be careful about when your economic solutions will seal people out from buying it, because that won't, again, fix supply. There's enough demand. People will buy PS5s at the store for $1,000 if you just put them in front of them. That's not the problem. But it is true. Mike, are you there? Are you there? How much is the PS5 on HSN? Yeah.
For a second, I was
so
like, who's Mike?
on Home Shopping Network, Micah and I watch Home Shopping Network a lot in QVC, and they sell the PS5 for over $1,000 there. So,
wow.
And you can buy it like right now. It comes with like nonsense too, like, like
stickers.
Yeah, like not like a third party controller or some nonsense. So
Mad Cats.
Yeah, exactly. All right, final question is a funny one, or a fun one rather. I'm sorry, from Jesse Reamer. He says, "Hey Magnum Dongs, if you had a AAA game budget money and could independently fund a new game of an already existing IP, what game would you make?" So obviously we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I said G.I. Joe would be like my major one, but he wants to know existing game IP, which would we revisit? He said he would do Splinter Cell. It's for you, Chris. Or Dino Crisis. Yeah. I feel like they will return to that one day, Capcom. As these are some of my favorite dormant franchises. I feel like Dino Crisis, especially with Resident Evil's resurgence, would be a huge game to go back and do like a horror game with dinosaurs. Love to hear your thoughts. Keep up the amazing content. Love you guys. Dustin, if given AAA budget, you can independently fund an existing IP. I guess there's no licensing issues or acquisition issues. Which would you go to? What game that already exists would you want to continue?
I could be more creative about this, but I'm not going to, because this is what I want. I've been saying this for a few years now. They did Skyrim VR. They converted a standard game and made it VR game. It was great. Surprisingly great. I want someone to make BioShock a VR game. And update it maybe. Since he said we got AAA budget, fuck it. Remake BioShock, make it 2D playable and all of the next gen, current gen, whatever you want to say, glory. And then also make it playable in VR. And man,
BioShock remake, I don't know.
Well, remake, let's say graphically. I'm just saying, since we've got budget, like,
I understand. I'm not against it. It's don't you? I mean, it's dangerous. You don't want to mess with. I mean, remaking BioShock is akin to remaking Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Like I've said that before, or like very specific games where it's like remaking The Last of Us. We're gonna see how that goes. Apparently,
yeah.
Well,
Yeah. BioShock is one of those things where it's like,
I'm nervous about
I know
that.
it doesn't say.
No,
like,
definitely. I'm not shitting on. I'm nervous about that because
yeah.
it's
If
so
you
good.
could recapture, if you could just like flawlessly recapture it.
Well, if we have
we
have the budget, so we can hire Ken Levine.
sure.
Yeah.
You could even keep all the same voice acting. Just go like rebuild this model for current gen.
I love that.
Rebuild
it's an Unreal 3, I think, right? So Unreal 5 BioShock would be fucking dope.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to be really careful though, because like every part of it's, we've talked about this a lot, but like video games are like houses of cards, like even just one misplaced thing will just like ruin the feel. Like if the water looks a little bit too different from the original, you might be like, water's so big in BioShock and now it looks weird. Now the whole game looks weird. Like, what's up? What are they doing? That water still, by the way, looks super good.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. BioShock's a great one. I'm a little annoyed that Jesse just took the wind out of my sails, but it would be Splinter Cell.
Yeah,
like I would, without a doubt, I would hunker down. I would make the best Splinter Cell you've ever fucking seen.
Be the best Splinter Cell.
You'd be like,
you've
whoa,
ever seen.
Michael Ironside, if he's still alive, I'll get him back. I'll bring him back to life.
You've never seen so many
Yeah.
Splinter Cells.
You've never seen this many splinters
in one cell.
in this many cells.
And this one's everyone's saying, what is that thing? Everyone's talking about the cells.
If Ubisoft won't make it, I'll make it, and it'll be the best.
Dude, I love Splinter Cell, and it as time goes on, it looks increasingly like Ubisoft is just going in like the complete opposite direction,
Yeah.
and that's sad, and it's especially somber because the last time we even saw Sam Fisher, he was literally like
Wasn't it like in an iOS
ruminating
game or
about the fact that he was the last stealth person left. So it was just like, man, it's extra sad.
It's
But-
unbelievable.
'cause it's like,
It's actually unbelievable. Like it's literally. I want to be clear. I'm not using that hyperbolically. It is unbelievable that they're not making a Splinter Cell game. Like I can't believe it. But you're right though. I've been saying this for years since we started the show. It's been 3 years of me saying that. So clearly, that's like enough time to have made the game. So
yeah, it's definitely enough time for at least something to have leaked, like that is substantial. But instead, we got him in that weird XCOM mobile game bullshit. Whatever, I don't know. It's sad, but I would definitely make a Splinter Cell game. Oh, if not just for Splinter Cell, purely because stealth is a great genre and it's kind of underserved right now. The best stealth game that we've had recently is like what? Like
I have no idea.
Hitman, maybe?
Is
that
Hitman.
even stealth?
Hitman
It's
is
like
like
a mix.
social stealth.
Yeah.
It's like a mix of. It's not the same. Like I want the experience of like shoving like a microscopic camera under a door and like looking around and like crawling through vents and like night vision goggles. Like that's the kind of shit that I love. And the closest thing that I can even imagine is like Dishonored 1, where you could choose to play the game stealthily even though you had all these badass superpowers, so why the fuck would you?
I'm reading the.
I don't know.
I'm reading the the Wikipedia for stealth game just to see if anything popped out. They're calling Creative Assembly's Alien Isolation a stealth game, which I guess, and they say also Untitled Goose Game would be a stealth game.
No.
By sheer technicality. Because you hide in a game, that doesn't make it a stealth game.
Right.
Like, is Resident Evil a stealth game because there's a section where you have to hide from that fucking disgusting thing? No, it's not.
No, you're absolutely right.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just sad.
Well, I have so many answers. I mean, I don't even know what I would do with myself if I had this kind of opportunity. I would have to like sit down and be like, really? Some genie comes and is like, you can have a $200 million budget and go do whatever the fuck you want. But I wouldn't need that much money. Not even anywhere close to that much money, actually. But you know what comes to mind for me? Final Fantasy Tactics. It's time. It's time. It's been so long. It's been so very long. And I don't know why it has been so long. It has been 24 years since Final Fantasy Tactics came to PS1. And it has been more than a decade since we even got the weird spin-offs The first one came to GBA in 2004. The second one came to DS in like 2007, I want to say. So I don't get it. I know how hard these games are to make. They're incredibly hard to make. And people are going to bitch and whine if they make it in 2.5D or full 3D, and I will bitch and whine too. They have to make it in pixel art. So it's complicated, but you know what? In playing that game Fell Seal, which was my 2019 game of the year, it's like, God damn, dude, this game was made by like 7 or 8 people. And it's great. It's exactly what it's like. They should just go buy them and be like, just put Final Fantasy Tactics on it and put black mages in it and shit. But so that's, because it's easy to say Mega Man, Castlevania, all the normal shit that I always fucking beat into the ground. But I'm going to beat this one into the ground too. I'm going to beat something. Instead,
you get Dark Souls Final Fantasy. Fuck you.
Yeah,
Colin.
that was. I was like, oh man. When I saw that, I was like, because at first when I saw Team Ninja, that goes in 2 different directions, right? That's either Ninja Gaiden or that's Neo. They have a choice. The game's already in development, so they've already made it. It would be much more interesting to go into the Ninja Gaiden route. That makes much more sense in Final Fantasy than the Neo route. But I'm gonna wait and see what happens. I'm not gonna judge it now. Team Ninja is very good. So. And also, it might not be real. I mean, this could be not true. By the way, I want to make 2 other corrections as we wrap up, just so I don't have to do them next week. BioShock is actually on Unreal 2.x, which I didn't know. So it's worth noting, Unreal 3 wasn't even available on PS3 until 2010. So so too long away for that. And I said earlier that Black Isle is owned by Microsoft, of course, and those are the guys that made Fallout. But of course, In Exile are the guys that are owned by Xbox. Those guys come from that team. So wanted to, don't write in. Don't do it.
Good job. Nice catch.
Thank you. Don't do it. Don't do it. I said, don't open that client. Okay, good. All right, boys. It's time to go. Chris, any closing thoughts?
I'm about to inhale some Five Guys because I've been feeling.
Damn.
I've been feeling the bug.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm jealous.
Good for you, Dustin. What's on your agenda?
There is a new PS5 in my house now. I got one on Amazon yesterday for my friend Brandon's dad, who he will use to play just countless hours of GTA Online. So great. I was happy to be of assistance.
That's excellent. I thought it was going to be for Ben because his PS5, I think he finally got Sony to accept that they're going to fix it, right? So that's good.
Yeah, he actually, I think he's getting a coffin in the mail and then he has to ship it away. So
I remember that. My PS3 broke once and I sent them, they sent me the coffin and I sent them, it was my PS3 Slim. And they just sent me a new one. I don't know if they did that because I was at IGN or if they did that because that's just, it was like, it's just easier. It probably is easier and cheaper to just be like,
it's typically just easier to just here's a fucking new one. Like I remember I did that with when my 360 died, I sent mine in and they sent me back my same thing and it was still fucked. And then I sent it back again and they sent it back and it was messed up again. And then I sent it back and then they were like, here's a new one. and then it worked fine. But like, that happens a lot.
Yeah. It was frustrating. What I remember about that being so notable is that I had a Sopranos DVD in the console when it died. No. So there's and I eventually threw those DVDs out or gave them away or whatever. But there was like season 3, disc 2 was just missing or whatever, like forever. Like it's just gone. Yeah, so that's like what I
in some destroyed PS3 somewhere in a landfill.
Because you remember the PS3? What was it? It was like the PS3 Fat had some sort of mechanical thing where you could force the disc out of it. You remember what I'm talking about? Like you could press something on it even if it's plugged in or it would eject the disc, but I think the Slim didn't have that. It was something like something weird like that where you just couldn't get the disc out. So I assumed, I'm like, oh well, you'll fix my PS3 and I'll get my DVD back. And then
that's the same thing with the 360. I think there was like when that Slim 2010 model 360 came out. That was a pretty good looking console, by the way.
That was the black one, right?
But the black one. Yeah. That one didn't have like on the old 360s you could like bend a paperclip and like poke it through like a hole and it would like eject the disc, but now in those ones you wouldn't. Slim ones just don't let you do that for some reason. Just slim consoles in general. I don't know what that is about.
I don't know what that is all about either. Well, we appreciate all your time out there, your love, your kindness, your support of our show. Remember to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access, the ability to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, get your name in the credits, get access to Sacred Symbols Plus, which will be rolling twice a week starting in July. We're really excited about that. And that's all due to your support. LastStandMedia.shop for merch. Go to YouTube, go to Reddit, podcast services, leave us nice reviews, whatever you want to do. We're all over the place. We appreciate you very much. And thank you again for that kindness. We'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. Until then, goodbye.
See you next time.
Take care, guys.
There we go. That's nice. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from Central Virginia and Burbank, California, USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun Maldonado. Sacred Symbols' executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.